Chapter 9-10. She was Guijieshi's third granddaughter, Guishuoyu. Naturally, she was the daughter of his lover. When it came to hairstyles, it was always awkward. Guishuoyu was indeed beautiful with her heavy makeup. However, when she met someone like Xiao Jin, if Xiao Jin was like a lotus in clear water, she was already at the peak. She had a celestial aura that could not be ignored. In front of her, Guishuoyu was simply competing with the bright moon, so much so that Guishuoyu himself felt embarrassed. She stroked her hair and looked at Xiao Jin. She asked curiously, "Grandpa, who is this?" Guijiesher looked at her and smiled. "Shuoyu, come down. Let me introduce you. This is Grandpa's old friend, Grandpa Mu. This is his granddaughter, Xiao Jin. She's a few years younger than you." Guishuyu's lips twitched. She walked over, her posture swaying like the wind. As a young lady, her dress was actually a little bold. It was not too much to wear a low-collared backless dress. She had a good figure, so she could flaunt it. Mu Xiangshan was old-fashioned. Although he had lived abroad, he did not like this. Moreover, he felt that Guishuoyu was a little embarrassing for the Gua family. Guishuoyu walked over and looked at Mu Xiangshan and Xiao Jin. She smiled faintly and said, "Hello." Her gaze could not help but size up Xiao Jin with a hint of jealousy. She seemed to be trying her best to maintain her arrogance, causing her chin to be slightly raised. She seemed to be overexerting herself. Xiao Jin's gaze swept over her body for a moment, then lowered down without interest. Seeing Xiao Jin's cold look, Guishuoyu was a little embarrassed. After greeting them, she found an excuse and left. "Grandpa, I have something to do. I have an appointment with a friend today. I'll leave first." Guijiesher was still smiling. "Go ahead." Guishuoyu hurried off. Not long after, the roar of a sports car came from outside. Guijiesher smiled and said, "Shuyu and the others grew up with me. They live in Xiangdu. They're a little different from here. They're actually quite obedient." After saying this, he gestured for them to sit down. Xiao Jin sat down and scanned the Gua clan. Mu Xiangshan and Guijiesher chatted about some trivial matters. Most of the time, it was Guijiesher reminiscing about the past. In fact, both Xiao Jin and Mu Xiangshan could tell that Guijiesher was a little concerned about his past identity. He used to be the son of the Mu family's helper and called Mu Xiangshan young master. Now that he saw Mu Xiangshan and realized that he was richer than him, he couldn't help but show off a little. Mu Xiangshan didn't say anything when he heard that. He thought to himself, "My son was just a little unfilial. Your house was poisoned. Who's more miserable? Riches and honor." Mu Xiangshan spoke softly. Guijiesher could not help but exclaim, "Jiesher." Mu Xiangshan nodded repeatedly. Yes, Jiesher, Jiesher, the past is the past. Why do you have to care so much? Look at you now. You have a bunch of children and a big family business. Isn't that enough? As long as you don't have any regrets when you leave." Guijiesher snorted. "I'm afraid you don't know. When I went to Xiangdu to start my business, those people looked down on people from the mainland. I suffered a lot in order to stand out. Back then, Grandpa." At this moment, another weak female voice was heard. Her tone was very weak. It sounded like she was too weak to stand up to a gust of wind. When she walked down the stairs and revealed her true self, she was also like this. Chapter 9-11. She wore a long white dress that almost reached the floor, and her hair was slightly loose. Her face was exquisite and beautiful, and it was obvious at a glance that she was not Guishuyu's daughter. This woman was obviously much prettier. Guizhui, Guijiesher's fifth granddaughter. When Xiao Jin saw Guizhui, the corners of his lips curled up slightly. Guizhui, of course, noticed her as well. The moment she came downstairs, she met Xiao Jin's eyes. Guizhui blinked, as if she was curious about Xiao Jin's appearance. When Guijiesher saw Guizhui, his smile widened. "Zhui, why did you come down? If you're not feeling well, you should stay in the room and rest more." Guizhui smiled. "It's okay. I heard that there were guests in the house, so I came down to take a look." Although she grew up in Xiangdu, her accent was much more normal than Guishuoyu's, and her Mandarin was very standard. It was obvious that she had put in a lot of effort. Of course, Guijiesher introduced her to Xiao Jin and Mu Xiangshan as usual. Guozhui looked more like the daughter of a prestigious family. She was dignified, beautiful, and elegant. She was so much better than Guoshuoyu. It was not necessary to compare her with Guoshuoyu. After all, Guoshuoyu and Guozhui were sisters. It was easy to compare them. Guozhui walked over and greeted them with a polite smile. She then elegantly introduced herself. Other than her pale complexion and sickly complexion, everything else about her was perfect. Compared to the other daughters of the Guo family who were high-profile in the news, Guozhui had never appeared in the news. Zhui has been in poor health since she was young. We have thought of many ways to treat her illness. She has been recuperating overseas. In recent years, I have not been in good health, so she came back to accompany me. She is very thoughtful. Zhui is as smart as you. Even if she is not in good health, it did not affect her studies. She graduated from MIT a long time ago, and now she is helping her father with his business. She is smart and capable. Guo Jiesher smiled. He was showing off his granddaughter with sincerity. Xiao Jin blinked and suddenly smiled. Your granddaughter seems to be in good health. She can help you with so many things. The way she spoke was a little strange, but after listening carefully, there was nothing strange about it. However, Guozhui's body still stiffened for a moment before returning to normal. Guo Jiesher did not understand what she meant, but nodded and replied, Zhuyi's body is much better now, and she has found a way to control it. Besides, we all love her dearly. Why would we let her do something so tiring? I plan to wait until I'm old enough to leave some shares for Zhuyi and let her live a life of luxury. Guo Jiesher patted Guozhui's shoulder. Zhuyi, you should just enjoy the rest of your life. You're about to get married. I'm sure the 9 sects will treat you well. Guozhui smiled gently. Thank you, Grandpa. 9 sects. Mu Xiangshan seemed to have thought of something as he asked incredulously, the Hao family's 9th sect? Guo Jiesher seemed very pleased with himself as he replied, yes. Mu Xiangshan was genuinely in disbelief, but he quickly regained his composure and did not ask again. Xiao Jin lowered her body and rubbed her chin. She looked at Guozhui curiously. Is Zhui sick? Her question was a little inappropriate, but no one would think there was a problem. Chapter 9:12. Guozhui looked at him and smiled gently. It's just physical discomfort. My immune system is weaker than others since I was young, so I often get sick. I'm much better now. A weak immune system wouldn't be such a big problem. Xiao Jin chuckled. I see. Mu Xiangshan guessed that Xiao Jin had seen through something, so he spent the rest of the time playing dumb with Guo Jiesher and asking some questions. Guo Jiesher was old now, and he was in the same position as Mu Xiangshan. He didn't say much, but he did reveal some problems. Mu Xiangshan and Xiao Jin stayed for lunch, and they didn't refuse. Guo Jiesher's son was in charge of the Guo family now, so there was no doubt about the distribution. Some of the shares were in the hands of his son's ex-wife. Even after the divorce, his son did not remarry. However, Guozhui's mother was still living in the Guo family as the legitimate wife. Guoshui's mother was nowhere to be found. Guozhui's mother gave birth to the most important Guo sisters in the Guo family, as well as a son. Guozhui also had a sister who was only 1 year older than Xiao Jin. However, it was said that her health was worse than Guozhui's. It wasn't suitable for her to even show her face, so she had been recuperating in the Guo family's villa. During lunch, Guo Jiesher and Mu Xiangshan chatted. Xiao Jin came over with the excuse of going to the bathroom. He turned a corner and saw the side hall of the villa. The side hall was a transparent glass compartment with a sofa and some basic furniture inside. The sunlight shone in directly, and it was very bright. A girl was lying on the sofa. She was wearing a white lace princess nightgown and holding an English book in her hand. She was very beautiful and looked a little like Guozhui. However, she looked more lively than Guozhui. She was probably Guozhui's sister, Guozhuian. She didn't notice Xiao Jin when he came in until Xiao Jin suddenly said, "What are you looking at?" The girl seemed to be shocked and quickly straightened up. When she looked up and saw Xiao Jin, she was a little confused and surprised. You are? Xiao Jin smiled and said, I'm here as a guest. My name is Xiao Jin. Her smile looked pure and harmless, especially with a sense of comfort, which could give people a good impression. When Guo saw her coming, she was not afraid. She was just curious. Xiao Jin? She read the name and smiled. Good name? Her smile was a little innocent. However, there was always a kind of melancholy that could not be dispersed between her eyebrows, which made people feel depressed. Xiao Jin asked, "Are you Guo?" Guo was a little surprised. She straightened up and looked at Xiao Jin. "How did you know it was me?" Xiao Jin said, "You and your sister Guo look very similar. No one would not recognize you." Is that so? When talking about her sister, Guo expression did not look that happy. Instead, it was a little gloomy. "I thought they wouldn't mention my existence. Many people don't know that I'm her sister when they see me." Why? Xiao Jin's words were light, but there was a kind of comforting feeling and a desire to confide in her. Guo wanted to say something, but she thought of something and forcibly suppressed it. "I don't usually appear outside, so they rarely know that the Guo family has a granddaughter." Chapter 9:13. This was the truth, because outsiders did not know about Guo situation. The media knew that the Guo family had a few granddaughters, but they had never seen Guo and Guo. At least Guo still showed up in the Guo family, but Guo rarely appeared in the Guo family. It didn't seem like she couldn't appear, but as if the Guo family had deliberately hidden her. Xiao Jin was about to speak when light footsteps came from outside. She looked up and saw Guo at the door. Her pitiful face seemed a little surprised that Xiao Jin was here. She smiled and said, "Miss Xiao, what are you doing here?" Xiao Jin also smiled and said, "I saw your sister and was curious, so I came to take a look." Guo did not expect her to be so straightforward. Under normal circumstances, Xiao Jin should not know that she had a sister. When Guo looked at Guo, she did not have the sisterly love that she had imagined. Instead, she seemed a little reluctant to get close. She quickly stood up and said, "Sister, I'll go back to my room first." Then, she took the book and glanced at Xiao Jin. She left without saying goodbye. Guo was afraid that Xiao Jin would notice something, so she said gently and helplessly, "She's always like this. She doesn't like to talk about my identity in front of outsiders." Julian's body was weaker than mine since she was young, so she rarely appeared outside. So, very few people know about her. I didn't expect Miss Xiao to know. Of course, who doesn't know about the Guo sisters? She pursed her lips, as if it was just a casual sentence, and then walked out. Guo looked at Xiao Jin's back as she left. Her eyes gradually darkened, as if she was thinking about something. When they arrived at the hall, Mu Xiangshan asked her, "Where have you been?" Xiao Jin said, "I just went to the side hall and saw Guo Jui's sister." "Oh!" Guo tilted his head in surprise. Julian also came out for some fresh air. What a coincidence. He didn't seem to know anything. Xiao Jin retracted his gaze and chuckled. Yes, what a coincidence. Mu Xiangshan looked at Xiao Jin meaningfully, but he did not ask anything. After all, Xiao Jin would tell him everything when they returned. Guo followed him out. Coincidentally, someone came to report that young master Hao Jiuzong had arrived. Hao Jiuzong should be Guo's fiancé that was mentioned just now. Guo eyes also lit up as he said, "Oh, speak of the devil. I'll let you meet him." Mu Xiangshan, on the other hand, quickly turned his gaze towards Hao Jiuzong. He seemed very curious about this Hao Jiuzong. Xiao Jin had never heard of Hao Jiuzong. At this time, he also raised his eyes and saw a tall figure coming in from outside the Guo family's villa. He was indeed a tall, rich, and handsome man with a height of more than 1.8 meters. His appearance was perfect. Moreover, he had a strong appearance. His eyebrows were very thick, probably like what the older generation said about thick eyebrows and big eyes. When he walked, he was very imposing. Wearing a hand-sewn black suit, he strode forward with big strides, which was very eye-catching. Grandpa Jui. After coming in, Hao Jiuzong greeted them. When he saw Xiao Jin and Mu Xiangshan, he raised his eyebrows slightly. Guo smiled and said, "Jiuzong, come. This is Grandpa Mu Xiangshan, and this is his granddaughter, Xiao Jin. You should have heard of her." Sure enough, when he heard the name, The surprise and how Jiuzong's eyes gradually faded. He seemed to be surprised. So it's Grandpa Mu and Miss Chiao. Hello. Chapter 9:14. Mu Xiangshan nodded. Xiao Jin glanced at Hao Jiuzong and nodded as well. Hao Jiuzong's eyes were on Guizhui. When he saw Guizhui come out, he walked over and put his arm around her shoulder. He was obviously affectionate and helpless. I told you not to leave the room unless it's necessary. You're not in good health. What if you fall? I'm not that weak. Guizhui seemed to find it a little funny. She grabbed his hand and intertwined their fingers. I can't stay in the room all the time. I have to get some air. The two of them were a match made in heaven. They were practically a match made in heaven. Xiao Jin only glanced at him. The corners of her lips curled up slightly, and she turned her gaze away without much interest. Mu Xiangshan also glanced at them. He didn't think that they were particularly compatible. Instead, he was thinking about something. Her fiancé was here, and they looked like they were in love. Mu Xiangshan didn't want to stay any longer. He said goodbye to Guizhi for a while. On the way home, Mu Xiangshan clicked his tongue. Hao Jiuzong actually likes Guizhi? Xiao Jin. You don't have to say that, right? Guizhi is also Guizhi's granddaughter. So what? No matter what, she's still a lover. It's not that I look down on her, but a place like the Hao family values status and bloodline the most. I'm afraid you don't know that the Hao family is a big family in Shanghai. They value status the most. Guizhi is an illegitimate daughter. No matter what, she can't be worthy of Hao Jiuzong. So I think it's unbelievable that the Hao family actually agreed. Xiao Jin was very calm. I'm also the daughter of a mistress. Guanqing still likes me. Her biological mother was a mistress. Mu Xiangshan had double standards. How can you be the same as her? You were raised by Qiao Fei. What does that have to do with your biological mother? Besides, how can Guizhi compare to you? It wasn't that he was partial to Xiao Jin. Anyone with eyes could see that Xiao Jin was much better than Guizhi. And Mu Xiangshan clicked his tongue. I keep feeling that Guizhi exudes evil. It wasn't easy to say whether it was evil or not. Anyway, he didn't like his daughter. It wasn't that he was pretentious. He had seen many people like her. Guizhi had some tricks up her sleeve, but it wasn't enough to make Mu look down on her, but she was evil. She herself was evil. But Mu didn't know what was evil. Xiao Jin looked at Mu Xiangshan. You can even tell? Mu Xiangshan paused for a moment, then looked at Xiao Jin. I asked you to go to the Guo family so that you could take a look. Xiao Jin said, there is indeed a huge problem. I've already told you that your worldview is at stake. Mu Xiangshan. He thought for a moment, then sighed and said calmly, I'm old. I've seen all kinds of things. What do you want to tell me? Tell me. How bizarre is it? I can handle it. Xiao Jin thought for a moment. Since the old master had already predicted it, and Mu Zilian knew about it, there was nothing inappropriate about it. He told Mu Xiangshan about the world of spiritual psychics, but she only briefly talked about it. The main point was still the Guo family. She only said, the main point shouldn't be old Master Guo. It's true that he was poisoned. The main point is Guizhi. I saw something on her. Traces of a formation. Guizhi had taken someone's life. Chapter 9:15. That someone was Guo Julian. And Xiao Jin had a reason to care about Guo Julian, because she saw an array point in Guo Julian's heart. Out of the 9 array points, the 5th one had appeared. Guo Julian's birth should have been a tragedy. She was bound by a very ordinary life-binding array. This array wasn't very dangerous, but it would cause a lot of pain. It was true that Guizhi was weak when she was young, but the pain was transferred to Guo Julian. That was why Guo Julian was rumored to be in poor health. That was probably the reason why the Guo family didn't let Guo Julian appear in front of others when she was young. If Xiao Jin hadn't sent something and went to the side hall, she probably wouldn't have found Guo Julian today. But she saw that there was something wrong with Guizhi. An old master Guo wasn't just poisoned. He didn't have an array on him, but there were signs that he was being watched. It was a bit like the skill of a spiritual psychic, probably a wizard. Xiao Jin didn't mention the array points. She only told him about Guizhi and Guo Julian's life-binding array. Even so, It was enough to refresh old Master Gua's worldview. He was stunned for a long time before he said, "I've heard some incredible things before, but I didn't expect them to be true." Xiao Jin said, "You'll get used to it." Mu Xiangshan. He looked at Xiao Jin with a complicated expression. "So you're not a fortune teller. You've become an array master. That's why you can see what's on Guo Jieshi's body." Xiao Jin nodded. "That's more or less what you said." Mu Xiangshan said, "Good girl. You were raised by the Mu family. If you have the ability, why don't you let the Mu family enter the world's top 100 sooner?" Xiao Jin, "Do you think some things are free and don't have to pay a price?" Mu Xiangshan sighed, but in the end he clicked his tongue and said, "I knew it. Then how do we deal with the Guo family's matter?" Xiao Jin said, "It's hard to say. If you want to solve it, you should tell Guo Jieshi and let him think about it himself. It's possible that he was poisoned by anyone in the Guo clan. The goal should be to make him die sooner. I can solve the life-linking array on Guo Zhui, but it depends on how things go." It was easy to solve, but there had to be a reason and cause. Since she was able to bind the life-linking array to the Guo sisters, there should be an array master by her side. Their mother should have a powerful background. However, he didn't show up today, and there had to be a reason. Of course, Xiao Jin could jump out and directly solve Guo Julian's problem. But who knew what he was thinking? This was the Guo clan's matter, so Mu Xiangshan should take the lead. Xiao Jin didn't have to take the lead. Mu Xiangshan obviously understood this. He lowered his head and pondered for a while, then said to Xiao Jin, "I'll take you to the Guo clan in the next few days. At the very least, we have to find out who poisoned Guo Jieshi. He suffered retribution at his old age, but I haven't heard of him doing anything outrageous. When we find out who did it, I'll deal with it and let him deal with it himself." Mu Xiangshan felt bitterly disappointed for the Guo clan to have such a scum. He saved Guo Jieshi this time as repaying the kindness of Guo Jieshi's father. Xiao Jin nodded. Thinking about Guo Julian being the fifth array point, she thought about it and went to see Peng Yuan. After Peng Yuan was sent in, she didn't go to see him even once. Chapter 916. She went to visit Peng Yuan. Peng Yuan was currently living in a place similar to a nursing home. He was having a good time with a bunch of old ladies and grandpas. Seeing Peng Yuan dancing around on the lawn with a bunch of old ladies and grandpas laughing happily around him, Xiao Jin thought to herself that Peng Yuan was actually a lot less worrisome. She just didn't know what would be waiting for her when all 9 of them were gathered together. After a while, Mo Jiang called her and asked Xiao Jin when she would be free to visit her. Xiao Jin said, "If you have something to say, just say it directly." Mo Jiang laughed like a bewitching demon. Even through the phone, one could feel her seductive aura. "I've recently taken a liking to a female lead role in a film. Unfortunately, when I went to look for her, I wasn't qualified enough. So, I wanted to ask your boyfriend for help." When it was time to make use of her, Mo Jiang did not hesitate at all. Song Yanqing certainly had the ability to do so, but Xiao Jin felt that Mo Jiang was being unreasonable. "You should rely on your own abilities. Besides, this is my boyfriend. It's not appropriate for you to do this." Mo Jiang said, "Don't you want me to become famous quickly and make a lot of money?" Xiao Jin said with some concern, "Actually, you don't have to look for him. Why don't you look for the spirit group? It might be better. They'll definitely do their best to help you settle the matter of the female lead." Mo Jiang paused. "Are you sure?" Xiao Jin said calmly, "I'm sure. Since you've joined the spirit group, you should make use of any opportunities you can. They have to contribute to you, don't you think?" Mo Jiang said happily, "All right, I'll go look for them." Xiao Jin added, "All right, there might be another person in a few days." Mo Jiang immediately understood. After a moment of silence, she said, "Is it a man or a woman?" "A woman." "Why is it a girl again?" Mo Jiang clicked his tongue. "Can it be a little fresh meat with 8 packs? It seemed that she had been like a fish in water in the circle recently. Now, she could speak like a tiger and wolf." Xiao Jin said calmly, "I don't mind if you attack an insider. If they became enemies in the future, it would be troublesome if there were problems between the array points." Mo Jiang, "Ha!" After hanging up the phone, He Yao called Xiao Jin as well. It was about the information that Xiao Jin had asked her to investigate the murderer's murder. It took me a lot of effort to pry open that person's mouth. Fortunately, it worked very well. One of the victims was quite surprising. She was the first wife of a rich family in Xiangdu, and she died in his hands. She was killed when he was running around Xiangdu. He committed 2 murders in Xiangdu, and his successful escape from Xiangdu was definitely related to this rich man's help. The most important thing is that the rich man is still alive. Xiao Jin had a bad feeling. Who is it? Hiao paused and said, his name is Guijiesher. He has returned to the capital and has several children. His son is a bastard like him, but he probably didn't expect his father to be so ruthless. TSK, men really turn bad when they are rich. Xiao Jin. She narrowed her eyes slightly. In this world, some things were indeed so coincidental. Her initial premonition was indeed correct. She didn't expect to connect the dots now. She didn't expect that a person who seemed to be smiling could be so ruthless. Chapter 9:17. Xiao Jin's fortune-telling was based on the basics. As long as a person's fate was strong, she couldn't see the past or the future. She could only use the array to check. However, she wouldn't use the array for no reason. Naturally, he would never have thought that the person whom Mu Xiangshan was talking about was actually such a vicious and merciless person. The media gossiped about Guo Jiesher's early years. His first wife was said to have gone abroad, just like his son's first wife. She didn't expect that he killed her. Xiao Jin looked at the information carefully. The murderer's name was Qian Lu. In his early years, he wasn't as perverted as he was now, but he was born with a sociopathic personality. He was in his 40s. When he was young, he committed murder in China. Later, in order to escape the police, he fled to Xiangdu. At that time, the management of Xiangdu was not integrated with that of the mainland. Later, he accidentally sneaked into the local gang in Xiangdu. In that era, many people's family history was not very clean. People like Qian Lu didn't have any skills, so he quickly attracted some people's attention. He fought fiercely and had a bloody smell. He taught himself some anti-tracking skills and was later hired by Guo Jiesher. Guo Jiesher asked him to kill his first wife at that time, pretending to be an accident or missing. Naturally, Guo Jiesher would finish the rest. Qian Lu agreed. Why did Guo Jiesher kill his first wife? Of course, it was because he relied on his wife to make a fortune after he went to Xiangdu. He didn't have a good life at home. He obeyed his first wife's words and had always held a grudge in his heart. He was later called a smiling tiger because he did things with a smile and was more ruthless than anyone else. Guo Jiesher's first wife disappeared in this way. This case was only one of Qian Lu's crimes. Later on, he killed another person and escaped from Xiangdu. He was a sociopath, but he was very trustworthy. After taking Guo Jiesher's money, he disappeared without a trace and never appeared in Xiangdu again. In fact, he left Xiangdu. He returned to China and continued to commit crimes. After that, he committed more than a dozen crimes, all at different times. If he had not targeted Xiao Jin, he might not have been caught. They accidentally discovered Guo Jiesher's case, but it had been decades. According to him, he didn't even know where Guo Jiesher's wife's body was. It was extremely difficult to find it, so the police were still collecting clues after receiving the news. They hadn't rushed to the Guo family to arrest Guo Jiesher yet. In the end, Guo Jiesher was poisoned by his family. Thinking of his smiling face, Xiao Jin couldn't help but sigh. There were some things that she couldn't think of. However, she had to give Mu Xiangshan a head-on blow first. Let him see if this Guo Jiesher was worth saving. Therefore, she passed the information to Mu Xiangshan. Old man, you should at least read this. Mu Xiangshan, what? He received Xiao Jin's information, which only contained the details of the Guo family's case. Mu Xiangshan looked at the information and his entire body stiffened. This was the first time he had misjudged someone. After a long time, Mu Xiangshan sighed. I really didn't expect him to be such a person. What a dramatic thing. Xiao Jin smiled. Yes, if you feel embarrassed, we can call the police. The police will tell us how to deal with this kind of thing. Mu Xiangshan. Chapter 9:18. It was rare for Xiangshan to help others, but he never expected to be hit in the head. No one would have thought that Guijesher, who seemed to be smiling, would actually do something to his first wife behind her back. Now that he thought about it, the fact that his son had so many lovers was not much different from him. However, it was surprising that Guijesher only had one son after so many years. On a certain level, he did not know if this was retribution. Xiao Jin left the decision to the old master. Guijesher had committed a crime against his first wife, so there was no conflict between him having to pay the price and finding out who poisoned him. Poisoning was not like setting up an array. Poisoning was something that anyone could do. Xiao Jin could tell at a glance that Guizhui had a life-linking array on her, but it was difficult to tell who had poisoned Guijesher. The harder a person's life providence was, the harder it was to tell. The person who could poison someone had a strong life providence. It was not only the Gua family. If it was to avenge his mother, then Guijesher's son was not very suspicious. Actually, Xiao Jin thought for a moment and said with a smile, "If you want to kill Guijesher, you can just poison him. He's already old, so it's easy to do it without anyone knowing." Based on Guijesher's appearance, he seemed to be in poor health due to long-term poisoning. He had lived to this age, so it did not matter when he died. This was not Xiao Jin's intention, but from a normal point of view, this was indeed a little surprising. "You don't know." Mu Xiangshan waved his hand. "Guijesher may seem gentle, but he's actually very decisive. I've heard that he never lets anyone he doesn't trust handle his food. His steward is in charge of everything. His steward is a brother who has been with him for decades. They're like family now, so he trusts him very much. He doesn't even trust his own son and granddaughter. During dinner today, I saw his brother eat first. The reason he didn't poison him in one go might be because there's no way to poison him in one go. After all, Mu Xiangshan used to be in the business world, so he knew some things better." He thought for a moment. The reason he was poisoned might be because of other factors. After all, in today's society, the poison wasn't limited to just food. If it had been at Guijesher's place for a long time, the symptoms that could cause him to be poisoned would most likely be similar to a certain illness. That was why Guijesher didn't know that he had been poisoned. He had his own family doctor. If it was an ordinary poison, how could he not be able to detect it? Xiao Jin nodded and said, "This matter has nothing to do with us. If you still want to save him, then tell him directly." If the place where Guijesher's first wife was killed was found, and now that Xin Lu's mouth had been pried open, it was only a matter of time before Guijesher was caught. Even if he was detoxified, he wouldn't be able to live for long. Hearing this, Mu Xiangshan's expression was still a little complicated. When he was young and played with me, he was a very loyal and honest person. I didn't expect that after a few decades he would still change. The personality of a child is a child. Who can say for sure what will happen when they grow up? Xiao Jin said calmly, "I'll find time to visit the Guo family in the next few days. I'm not interested in him, but I'm quite interested in his granddaughter." Mu Xiangshan was speechless. Chapter 919. Guijesher's poisoning couldn't be said directly. He didn't even know. If Mu Xiangshan went to say it, what was the reason? How could he tell? Instead, he would get into trouble. Xiao Jin wouldn't say much. Anyway, the old man had his own assessment of this matter. If he felt that Guijesher was worth saving, then he would save him. If he didn't want to save him, then he wouldn't save him. Guijesher was already so old. In fact, many things were too easy for him. However, this was the way the world was. Even if some people committed heinous crimes, they might still enjoy their old age. No one could say for sure how strange fate was. Array masters carried karma, which corresponded to a sentence. The greater the power, the greater the responsibility. They had power that didn't belong to them, so naturally, they had to bear the corresponding shackles. The stronger the power, the bigger the shackles. But people's hearts were always unpredictable, just like Xiao Jin was so Buddhist because she stood in a different position. She respected life. Even if there was something like karma, spiritual readers still had their own way to satisfy their desires if they wanted to obtain more. What bound them was not power, nor karma. It was themselves. If they had no morals, no compassion, and respect for life, no matter how strong the karma was, it couldn't control them. Of course, it was impossible to go to the Guo family too frequently. Xiao Jin planned to go in a few days. Song Yanqing happened to be free now. With free time, he asked Xiao Jin to meet. They still met in the usual Chinese restaurant. The environment was quiet and secluded. When he saw Song Yanqing, he was wearing a white robe and was still cold and abstinent. Only his eyebrows revealed a gentle taste for Xiao Jin. Did you encounter something strange again? Song Yanqing already knew about Qian Lu's matter, but there was also Guo Jieshi's matter behind it. The Guo family and the Song family had no interaction, but he knew about the existence of the Guo family. It's not strange. Xiao Jin took a sip of the tea in front of him and said softly, "It's just a life-linking array and a person I need to find." Song Yanqing. What is a life-linking array? It doesn't sound like a good formation. Xiao Jin thought for a moment and said, "The life-linking formation is a little complicated. It's neither good nor bad. It depends on whether the person is willing to be bound. The life-linking array tied one's life to another's. If she died, she would die. If she lived, she would live. It's different from the life substitution array. The life substitution array is usually created when one party can't survive. If there's a formation master who falls in love with an ordinary person, it's very likely that he will use the life substitution array to ensure the safety of his other half." Song Yanqing was a little surprised. The one who was kidnapped is the daughter of the Guo family? Xiao Jin nodded. Yes, Guo Zhui. The one who was kidnapped is her sister, Guo Zhulian. The Guo family must have found a formation master to help. Guo Zhui's body is weak, and her fate is also weak. She originally had a short life, but it was forcibly extended. The pain is borne by Guo Zhulian. She glanced at Song Yanqing and explained, "Guo Zhui and Guo Zhulian are both Guo Jieshi's granddaughters. Guo Zhui is also engaged to Hao Jiuzong, but I don't know this Hao Jiuzong. The old man said that he's from a big family in Shanghai." "I know Hao Jiuzong." Song Yanqing's eyes flashed with excitement. "It's a century-old family in Shanghai that has existed since the war. This Hao Jiuzong and I have met in business. He's a very decisive and powerful person." Chapter 920. Song Yanqing didn't say this to praise Hao Jiuzong. Instead, he said something similar to what Mu Xiangshan said. The strange thing is that the Hao family actually agreed to the marriage between Hao Jiuzong and Guo Zhui. Song Yanqing pursed his lips and smiled faintly. Hao Jiuzong is the first heir of the Hao family, which is very different from Guo Zhui's identity. The Hao family values status the most. Guo Zhui is an illegitimate daughter, so she shouldn't be qualified to marry into the Hao family. How did Hao Jiuzong convince the Hao family to agree? Is the concept of family so important? Xiao Jin shook her head. Maybe it's true love. Song Yanqing closed his eyes slightly and smiled. Maybe, but I don't think it's likely. Hao Jiuzong had a younger sister who was not an important person in the Hao family. She fell in love with her bodyguard. In order to prevent them from being together, the Hao family broke the bodyguard's leg and forced the bodyguard's whole family to leave the country, a small country in Africa. They couldn't see the young lady of the Hao family for the rest of their lives. Not long after, Hao Jiuzong's sister hanged herself. Xiao Jin. She stopped drinking water. I thought this was a plot that only exists in the melodramatic TV dramas that Fei watches. Song Yanqing shook his head and smiled slowly. In this world, there are always some people who value status very much. If they are with someone who doesn't have the same status, the family will think that they have tarnished their bloodline. The Hao family is such an existence. They value bloodline very much. So I'm very curious about how Hao Jiuzong convinced the Hao family to successfully get engaged with Guo Zhui. Xiao Jin said, "Now that you mention it, I'm a little curious too." She paused. Just pure curiosity. On the surface, Guo Zhui was the young lady of the Guo family, but in private, she was an illegitimate daughter who was looked down upon by others. If Song Yanqing and Mu Xiangshan said that about the Hao family, then the Hao family would never agree to let Guo Zhui marry the legitimate heir of the Hao family. How did he get the Hao clan to agree? It was indeed quite curious. Song Yanqing said, "Maybe there's a chance to find out. Hao Jiuzong and Guo Zhui are about to get married. I'll take you there then." Xiao Jin thought for a moment and suddenly said, Maybe it has something to do with array masters. Speaking of array masters, Song Yanqing said, the spirit group in Shanghai and the imperial capital are on par with each other. If the news is correct, the Hao family does have some influence in the spirit group in Shanghai. If Guozhui has a life-linking array, then her engagement with Hao Jiuzong may not be a condition on the surface. Instead, it was an array master. It would be much easier for array masters to do these things. I'm not curious about that. Xiao Jin said, now I want to know what kind of existence Guozhuiyan is. There was even less news about her than Guozhui. She carried array points with her, which was enough for Xiao Jin to pay attention to her. Song Yanqing said, Guozhuiyan? He had never heard of Guozhuiyan. He only vaguely knew that Guozhui had a younger sister, so he said, I'll check it out. If there's any news, I'll inform you. Xiao Jin softly said, and at this time, the waiter began to serve the dishes, and the two began to eat. They came out to meet, so it was naturally not appropriate to talk too much about other people's affairs. After lunch, they had to ask Mo Jiang to eat again in the evening, because they agreed that Xiao Jin would treat them. Chapter 9:21. Mo Jiang had to shoot in the afternoon, so she only had time in the evening. Xiao Jin not only invited her, but also invited Meng Qingyu and Yang Qiulu. When Song Yanqing knew that he was going to see these women, he felt very strange. He always felt that there was no man around Xiao Jin, only him and the brothers of the Mu family. However, there were more and more women around her. They went to the set to pick up Mo Jiang, which was specially requested by Mo Jiang. This time, Song Yanqing drove in person. Because he was here to pick her up, he drove a relatively low-key private car. However, the logo of the car was too obvious, which clearly showed the amazing price of the car. Mo Jiang's recent scenes were in the capital. When the car stopped outside the set, it immediately shocked many people. It was not uncommon for stars to drive luxury cars. Many stars had Lamborghinis, Ferrari convertible sports cars, but obviously, some of the brands of cars could not be bought with money alone. One also had to have a membership and get the limited edition. This was not something that stars could dream of with their little money. When Song Yanqing and the others appeared in the set, the whole crew was wondering which big shot had come to visit them. Unfortunately, the car window was closed, so they could not see who was inside. After knowing that Mo Jiang had finished shooting, Xie followed her and asked her with a flattering smile, Mo Jiang, I know a new cake shop opened today. It tastes very good. You need to make an appointment to buy it. I have the qualification to make an appointment here. Do you want to go with me to try it? Mo Jiang had changed into casual clothes and removed her heavy makeup, but it could not hide her amazing beauty. She was playing with her mobile phone. She waved her hand absent-mindedly at Xie's flattery. I have something to do today. Let's talk about it another day. Xie's eyes flashed with a trace of disappointment. Didn't you finish shooting? Where are you going? Can I have an appointment with someone? Mo Jiang rolled her eyes. However, a good-looking person was still good-looking even if she rolled her eyes. She did it as if it was natural. You care about everything. What's my relationship with you? After saying this, Mo Jiang turned around and left. Xie stood rooted to the ground, feeling wronged and at a loss. The crew looked at each other. Some people clicked their tongues and some sighed. A beauty was a beauty. Even such a handsome young man could become a bootlicker. In any case, Xie had fans outside. In front of Mo Jiang, he was nothing. Xie's manager was about to vomit blood. He walked over and said to him, Ancestor, you're still a popular idol. She hasn't officially debuted yet. Aren't you spoiling her too much? No. Do you know what your behavior is called? According to the words on the internet, you're a bootlicker. Look at her attitude. She's obviously treating you as a spare tire, yet you're still licking your face and following her. When the fans see this, they'll turn against you again. You have to at least pay attention to your image, right? Xie only looked at Mo Jiang's back view. He was a little disappointed. I don't care. As long as she says something to me, I'll be very happy. The manager, he was really a bootlicker to the extreme. What was so good about that woman surnamed Mo? It was just that she was indeed a rare beauty in the entertainment industry. Anyone who stood in front of her would be overshadowed. There was nothing to say. The manager was suddenly worried. Chapter 9:22. At this moment, there was a sudden exclamation. It turned out that Mo Jiang had gotten into the luxury car parked outside the set and opened the door. Her impatient expression instantly melted like a 1,000-year-old iceberg, as if she was smiling happily at someone in the car. That attitude, that expression, and the way she acted in front of she just now were simply worlds apart. What was this behavior called? Bitch and bitch. She was stunned. Whose car is that? Her manager was even more stunned. Did you see that? She treated you as a spare tire and didn't even tell you. Who else could it be? It must be her sugar daddy. The manager wasn't making a random guess. After all, this kind of thing wasn't uncommon in the industry, especially someone like Mo Jiang. She was so beautiful, but she was so arrogant that she didn't even care about the male and female leads. When she was filming, her acting skills weren't good enough, and she even rolled her eyes when the director said a few words. The female lead of this movie was an A-list starlet, but she didn't dare to be as arrogant as she was. People had long guessed that Mo Jiang was some sugar daddy's canary sent here to experience life. Otherwise, why would she be so arrogant? Most importantly, the entire crew didn't dare to say anything. Even though Mo Jiang's sugar daddy hadn't shown his face yet, the news had spread like wildfire. Now that they saw the car, everyone finally felt that it was within their expectations. Look, the sugar daddy finally appeared. It was indeed impressive. Just looking at the car, it wasn't something that could be bought with money. The license plate number was exactly the same. It was so dazzling that it could blind people. It was clear that the person in the car wasn't an ordinary person. She watched as Mo Jiang got into the car and drove off in a few seconds. He suddenly felt a little dazed and couldn't help but lower his head and mumble, "What can I do to make her smile so happily at me?" The manager? Are you crazy? What's the point? The point is that her sugar daddy is here, and you still want to suck up to her? So what? She insisted. She didn't do it willingly. I understand that she just wants to be famous. I don't care. The manager. Why didn't she see that she could be so good at licking people? After Mo Jiang got into the car, she flashed a bright smile at Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin saw the group of people from the film crew looking at them with shock, envy, and jealousy. He immediately said, "Won't others misunderstand if she's like this?" Song Yanqing looked at the group of people outside and also glanced at Xie in the distance. The corners of his lips curled up as he said with a smile, "Probably." Then he drove the car away. Misunderstand what? Mo Jiang didn't care. Those people are always wondering if I'm being kept by someone. I'll just let them misunderstand. Even if I'm being kept, I'll be kept by the best person. Don't you think so? Xiao Jin, you're tarnishing my boyfriend's reputation. When he heard the word boyfriend, Song Yanqing's smile became even gentler. Mo Jiang, I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about you. Xiao Jin, Song Yanqing. Xiao Jin decisively refused. I can't afford to raise you. He really couldn't afford to raise a woman who cost 3 million yuan to buy a car. Even if the spirit group was willing to pay, they couldn't afford to let Mo Jiang cause trouble a few more times. Mo Jiang raised his eyebrows and sneered. Chapter 9:23. Meng Qingyu was studying in school when Yang Qilu called to say that she had a baby with her. If he didn't mind, she would bring Lan Xiaoni along. Of course, Xiao Jin didn't mind. Yang Qilu was an honest girl. After coming to the capital, she had been diligent. Xiao Jin was serious about taking care of them, but she couldn't really let Xiao Jin take care of them. Meng Qingyu gave her the money that Mo Jiang gave her, but she didn't dare to use it. She also had a job in the spirit group. Other than taking care of Lan Xiaoni, she also went outside to find a simple job. She didn't have a high education, so it was difficult to find a job in the capital. She didn't rely on the spirit group's connections, so she found a job in an internet cafe and worked the night shift. She was in good spirits now and realized that not resting much wouldn't affect her body, so she came up with this idea. In general, she was a very hard-working and down-to-earth girl. Meng Qingyu came with Yang Qilu. She thought that Xiao Jin had invited them alone, but when she saw Song Yanqing, her eyes almost popped out. She knew Xiao Jin, this fairy-like boyfriend. Every time she saw him, Meng Qingyu would think of the group of ugly male classmates in school. Occasionally, there would be a few good-looking ones. Compared to Song Yanqing, Meng Qingyu instantly felt that this was completely delaying her rhythm of finding a boyfriend. Indeed, only an immortal was worthy of an immortal. She sighed in her heart. Xiao Jin chose the Cherry Blossom restaurant that he had been to before. After all, the food here was really delicious. Meng Qingyu and Yang Qilu came and sat down in a private room. When Lan Xiaoni saw Xiao Jin, she called out sweetly, "Sister Xiao Jin." Xiao Jin smiled and nodded. When Yang Qilu put her down, he touched her head. Yang Qilu was a little nervous when she saw Mo Jiang, Song Yanqing, and the others. Although she was brought to the capital and her situation was much better, she was still a little timid. Seeing people like Xiao Jin and the others, there was always a feeling of inferiority. However, Xiao Jin and the others were very friendly, and this sense of inferiority would gradually fade as they got along. Mo Jiang, on the other hand, was much more casual. He handed the menu to Yang Qilu and Meng Qingyu and said, "Feel free to order." Xiao Jin is treating. She recently made a fortune. Xiao Jin chuckled, while Yang Qilu shyly let Meng Qingyu order. Meng Qingyu wasn't so restrained and asked Mo Jiang curiously, "You and that Xie are on the hot search list again. I saw many of his fans scolding you. Are you and Xie real?" Meng Qingyu had asked about this before, but at that time, she thought it was fake. Now that she saw it on the trending searches, of course she had to ask. Mo Jiang said casually, "Of course it's fake. Why would I date him?" Meng Qingyu was shocked. "If you don't like him, why did you create a scandal with him?" "My manager said that creating a scandal is good for me. At any rate, I haven't officially debuted yet." Mo Jiang blew on her nails. "Besides, Beitai is trying to be nice to me. Why should I reject him? If I reject him, wouldn't I be hurting his heart? In order to not make him sad, I had no choice but to create a scandal with him. Everyone, she was simply a scumbag." Even Meng Qingyu felt that Mo Jiang was going overboard. She pointed at her and said, "Scumbag." Mo Jiang raised her eyebrows. "Say that again?" Meng Qingyu was instantly terrified. After all, Mo Jiang was a super powerful array master. She couldn't afford to offend her. Chapter 9:24. Xiao Jin and the others ate together, so the conversation became more casual. Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing weren't talkative people. Yang Qilu was also more sensitive and introverted, so she didn't like to talk much. She had been eating quietly or feeding Lan Xiaoni. Meng Qingyu and Mo Jiang were the only ones talking the whole time. Most of it revolved around Mo Jiang's news. After all, Mo Jiang was in the entertainment industry now, so he knew a lot of news and gossip. Meng Qingyu was very interested. Song Yanqing and Xiao Jin sat together. While eating, Xiao Jin's phone received a text message. Song Yanqing subconsciously looked down and saw it. "Goddess Xiao, I like you. May I have the honor of treating you to a meal?" Song Yanqing. His eyes immediately looked down, and his gaze was a little deep. When Xiao Jin lowered his head, he naturally saw it too. Then his gaze met Song Yanqing's. Both of their eyes were very calm. Only his eyes looked deep, as if there were waves rolling and surging. Xiao Jin said very naturally, "Occasionally, there will be such harassing messages." Song Yanqing. After all, her phone number wasn't a secret. It was registered in school. Someone would try to find out Xiao Jin's number and send him a message from time to time to confess. Xiao Jin's method was to block the number. After all, she could prevent people from harassing her openly, but she wasn't good at the information network. He just wanted to confess that he liked her. It wasn't a violation of karma, so she couldn't do anything. This kind of thing would happen once in a while. If she blocked it, she wouldn't be bothered by it. Those who knew would naturally understand if she didn't respond to the message. So far, she hadn't met anyone who would pester her. Of course, Xiao Jin wouldn't give them the chance. "You're very popular." Song Yanqing's tone was light, as if he was stating a fact. Xiao Jin nodded. "Sort of. Being good-looking was indeed a little popular." Song Yanqing. He wasn't jealous, he just found it a little funny. In the past, he had been too confident in Xiao Jin. Now that Xiao Jin was enlightened and knew that he liked him, he believed that Xiao Jin would not do anything inappropriate to him. However, when he thought about how there were still people who would tirelessly confess to Xiao Jin, he felt a little uncomfortable. This was how she felt about her boyfriend. The subtle changes in the two naturally attracted the attention of Mo Jiang and the others. As Mo Jiang spoke, he looked over and asked, "What are you doing? Is someone harassing you?" It seemed that the two of them had changed after reading a text message. Xiao Jin said, "There's a harassing message, but it's okay." She picked up the phone and deleted the message in front of Song Yanqing and blocked the number. Mo Jiang glanced at Song Yanqing and then at Xiao Jin. He opened his mouth and wanted to say that it was no big deal to have a few spare tires because he was good-looking. However, Song Yanqing seemed to have sensed something and looked over. His gentle expression made him look like a noble young master. Even the smile on his lips made people feel gentle and coquettish. It was just that there was an inexplicable sense of danger. It was so dangerous that Mo Jiang wisely swallowed the words he wanted to say. Forget it, Big Boss was different from her. Big Boss's boyfriend didn't look like someone who could be a spare tire. To be honest, if Mo Jiang had a boyfriend of this standard, she wouldn't have kept a spare tire either. Who could she blame? She could only blame Xie for not being good-looking enough. Chapter 9:25. After the meal, Song Yanqing and Xiao Jin sent Meng Qingyu and the others home. Mo Jiang usually lived in Meng Qingyu's house, but recently, she had taken a fancy to a detached villa and wanted to buy it. Considering the fact that the villa was worth hundreds of millions, Mo Jiang was now working hard to accept acting roles. After sending her home, Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing left. After dinner, it was getting late. Song Yanqing drove her directly back to the Mu family. The atmosphere in the car was light. Now the weather was getting colder, and the temperature in the car was getting lower. Song Yanqing turned on the heater and asked Xiao Jin, "Are you cold?" Xiao Jin shook her head and said, "It's a little stuffy." Song Yanqing turned off the heater again and asked her, "When is the holiday?" Xiao Jin thought for a moment. "It should be soon." Song Yanqing, "It should be?" Xiao Jin. As a person who seldom went back to school, Xiao Jin said that it was not appropriate. She smiled. Song Yanqing shook his head helplessly and said with a smile, "You." The car arrived at the Mu family. Song Yanqing parked the car outside the glass villa of the Mu family. When he got out of the car and was about to open the door for Xiao Jin had already gotten out of the car. He looked at Xiao Jin. His eyes flashed, and he only said, "Rest early." Xiao Jin nodded and said, "You too. Good night." When she was about to enter the gate, Song Yanqing stopped her again. "Xiao Jin." There seemed to be some helplessness in his voice. Xiao Jin turned back. Song Yanqing's tall figure came over and held her wrist. He sighed, "Forget it. I'll do it myself." As he spoke, he lowered his head and kissed Xiao Jin on the corner of her lips. The kiss was very light, but it was much deeper than before. He stopped at the corner of Xiao Jin's lips for a second, and then moved to her tender red lips. It felt very soft like cotton candy. It was just a gentle kiss. When he looked up, he saw Xiao Jin's unsurprised expression. He said with a smile, "This is the routine. Good night." In fact, Xiao Jin didn't feel much. She just felt a little itchy. Now, she didn't feel anything strange about Song Yanqing's touch. She just simply felt it was a little itchy. Kissing was a strange feeling, she thought, but it was good. She smiled. Okay. Time. She could go into the house. Upstairs, someone angrily slammed the window shut. "Damn my eyes." Musichu was lying on the sofa reading a book with his head tilted. Hearing Musilian's complaint, he asked coldly, "What's wrong?" Musilian said with jealousy, "Someone is showing off their love. Isn't it a little too much?" Musichu, "Why didn't you feel that way when you had a girlfriend? How can it be the same?" Musilian was not convinced. "I have never brought my girlfriend home. You see, in broad daylight, the Qiao family doesn't carry people anymore." Musichu, "There are 2 Qiao family members in our house." "Which one are you referring to?" Musilian, "The most shameless one." Musichu, he turned over and whispered, "Crazy." Then he ignored Muzillion. Muzillion was still a little unconvinced. Since Qiao Jin had entered the house, he opened the door and went downstairs to the living room. Chapter 9:26. Fortunately, he bumped into Qiao Jin. Muzillion clicked his tongue and said, "You're so lovey-dovey. How dare you commit a crime in broad daylight?" Xiao Fei was watching TV in the living room and didn't know what was going on. When he heard Muzillion's sarcastic tone, he immediately scolded him. "What's wrong with you? What are you doing in your brother's room? Don't disturb his studies." "He's studying my ass. He's reading comics too. Why don't you scold him? His studies aren't affected by comics either. Unlike you?" Qiao Jin entered the room and saw Muzillion's sarcastic tone. Furthermore, she definitely knew that Muzillion had seen them from the window, so she didn't feel embarrassed. Such things were normal between couples. Muzillion had many girlfriends himself. Qiao Jin would be a fool to believe that he was still that innocent. She ignored Muzillion and said to Xiao Fei, "I'm back." Xiao Fei turned around and smiled at her. "You're back. Did you have fun outside with Lord Song today?" Xiao Jin nodded. Muzillion immediately said, "You guys didn't bring me along?" Xiao Jin said, "Why should I bring you along?" Muzillion was speechless. His words were so self-righteous that Muzillion didn't know how to respond. He felt a little sad. After all, they were friends who had gone through life and death together in a special world. They were different from ordinary people. He was different from Second Brother. However, Second Brother was really patient. He had told him everything, but he actually resisted the urge to ask Qiao Jin. How impressive! Of course, Qiao Jin said that these things couldn't be revealed. Now that Muzillion said it, although it was an accident that Second Brother tricked him, he felt a little guilty. He rolled his eyes and didn't say anything to Qiao Jin. He returned to Musich's room. Xiao Fei said, "Your brother is coming back tomorrow. This time, the matters abroad are almost settled. Your uncle Zhiming said that Qiji will be in China for the rest of the time. Our family can finally eat together again. It's great to see you guys every day." Xiao Jin nodded. "Qiji is coming back? That's good." Mu Qiji's experience with Ho Wan's incident probably refreshed his horizons. He often stayed abroad, and calmed himself down. "Oh, right." Xiao Fei suddenly whispered, "Your brother has a girlfriend again?" Xiao Jin was a little surprised. "He has a girlfriend?" Xiao Fei nodded. "Yes, your brother told me. He didn't say who it is. He only said that it might surprise us." Xiao Jin thought for a moment and suddenly said, "Song Suyu." Xiao Fei, the woman's eyes widened, and her fingers trembled again. She said with a trembling voice, "Who are you talking about?" Xiao Jin. "I just said it casually." The last time she watched it, she saw that Song Suyu's love scene would be very late, but it was only based on her age. However, her life was set quite late, which meant that Song Suyu would get married very late. Mu Qiji was the same. Now that Xiao Fei said this, she suddenly thought of Song Suyu. And when she suddenly appeared, it was often true, so she said Song Suyu's name. However, it was obvious that Xiao Fei didn't know yet. She seemed to find it hard to accept. "How do you know? Is the Song Suyu you're talking about Lord Song's sister?" Xiao Fei wasn't very familiar with Song Suyu. He had only seen her once or twice in the Song family. Chapter 9:27. The Mu family didn't know much about Song Yanqing's sister. After all, they didn't have much contact with the Song family. Song Suyu had never been to the Mu family either. Xiao Fei only knew that Song Yanqing's sister was called Song Suyu, and she wanted the two families to meet officially. Now that she heard Xiao Jin suddenly say that the boss's girlfriend might be Song Suyu, her eyes almost popped out. "Don't scare me," Xiao Jin said. "I'm not scaring you. Maybe I'm wrong." "Then why did you suddenly say his sister's name?" Xiao Fei was stunned. It was already a miracle that her daughter could hook up with the young master of the Song family. If the boss's girlfriend was Song Yanqing's sister, how much smoke was coming out of the Mu family's ancestral graves for such a good thing to happen? When Xiao Fei wanted to continue asking, Xiao Jin found an excuse and slipped away. Xiao Fei still didn't believe it. She was a little uneasy, so she called Mu Qiji directly. Mu Qiji was preparing to return to China, so he was surprised to receive a call from his mother. What was even more surprising was that Xiao Fei asked him directly on the phone, "Qiji, tell me honestly, is your girlfriend's surname Song?" Mu Qiji was a little surprised. "Mom, how did you know?" He and Miss Song had only confirmed their relationship yesterday. He didn't even think about it before. He didn't reveal that Miss Song was also abroad. How could Xiao Fei know so quickly? Even if he had reminded his mother that it might be someone unexpected, Xiao Fei had to be very smart to guess that it was Miss Song. Song Suyu is Lord Song's sister? Xiao Fei was even more incredulous. Her voice was a little louder. Mu Qiji was even more surprised. He sighed and said, "Mom, don't be so agitated. It's indeed Miss Song Suyu. It's just that we only confirmed our relationship yesterday. Whether it's stable or not is another matter. Don't be too agitated. I don't plan to bring her to meet you for the time being. Neither you nor the Song family should know about this." He also knew about the relationship between Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing. Could it be that Song Suyu had told her brother about it? Xiao Jin said so. Xiao Fei stammered, "How did you get together with Miss Song?" You and Xiao Jin are really doing big things without saying a word." Mu Qiji. He found it a little funny. How could this be considered a big deal? Fate had arrived. He and Song Suyu had naturally met. Previously, no one had this idea. They were just giving it a try. Some things, who could say for sure? Xiao Fei said, forget it. We'll talk about it when you come back. Mom doesn't think it's a big deal. It's just that it's too surprising. You're already so old. How can I control you?" Mu Qiji. Xiao Fei hung up the phone. When she saw Mu Xiangshan return with a worried look, she didn't have time to ask him what had happened. She just announced the good news. "Dad, let me tell you a piece of good news. Your eldest son has a girlfriend. Guess who it is?" Mu Xiangshan had just investigated Guo Jieshi's matter and was now vexed. When he heard this, he said in annoyance, "It's normal for him to have a girlfriend. Look at your surprise. Which golden phoenix did he find? Could it be from the Song family?" Xiao Fei. "Why did all of you know, but he didn't?" Mu Xiangshan saw Xiao Fei's dumbfounded expression and was instantly speechless. Chapter 9:28. The one from the Song family? Perhaps it was because of surprise. Even Mu Xiangshan's voice rose an octave, which was rare. "Xiao Fei, I heard him say that. It seems to be true." Mu Xiangshan was shocked. Because of the shock, he looked at Xiao Fei. "Capable? Xiao Fei. Dad, I don't quite understand what you mean." Mu Xiangshan clicked his tongue. The son and daughter that they gave birth to actually wiped out the Song family in one fell swoop. They only have one daughter and one son. Xiao Fei. She was also stunned. She blinked her eyes and said, "How would I know that they did such a big thing without saying a word? I was quite surprised when I found out. It was very sudden. I remember that Qiji didn't know the young lady of the Song family. I've only seen her twice. She's very elegant and beautiful. They didn't even speak much. It was just that Song Suyu had greeted the Mu family when he received them. It could be said that Xiao Jin's relationship with Song Suyu and the family was better than Song Suyu's. He didn't expect that his boss would suddenly know Song Suyu. How did they know each other? How did they confirm that they were dating? He was really curious. Xiao Fei had already expected the storm that Mu Qiji might face when he returned home tomorrow. One had to know that there were a few gossip fanatics in the family. Xiao Jin and the others didn't seem fanatical, but they always knew what was going on. They must be gossiping behind his back. Amazing. Mu Xiangshan also sighed. After all, he really didn't expect Mu Qiji to know Song Suyu. No one expected it. It was quite a sudden thing. It seemed that they still had to come back to find out what the situation was. It was just that Xiao Jin had a relationship with a noble young master like Song Yanqing. Now Mu Qiji was dating his sister. TSK. Xiao Fei's son was outstanding. His daughter could even hook up with Lord Song. He didn't even have any intelligence back then. Why did he focus on having children? Each one was more outstanding than the other. Seeing Mu Xiangshan's expression, Xiao Fei knew that Mu Xiangshan was up to no good. Although he was a little surprised, he couldn't help but feel happy. I didn't expect it to be the eldest daughter of the Song family. Now I can rest assured. It wasn't that they would definitely get married, but the incident between Mu Qiji and Ho one had left a shadow in Xiao Fei's heart. Now that Mu Qiji had found Song Suyu, there was a guarantee. The two of them could continue to date peacefully without causing any trouble. It was just that in the future, if they broke up, would it be awkward? It wasn't that she didn't trust the two of them, but it was impossible to be certain about such things. There were benefits to this marriage, but he was also afraid that there would be disadvantages in the future. Don't worry about what? Mu Xiangshan clicked his tongue. When he thought about Guo Jieshi's situation, he still felt a little vexed. It was a little too much to not save him, but when he thought about what he had done, he was already so old. How could he be so ruthless when he was young? Mu Xiangshan sighed in the end. He didn't want to get involved in the poisoning. To put it bluntly, with Guo Jieshi's character, how could he explain how he knew? He would most likely suspect Mu Xiangshan. He could even lay his hands on his own wife. He was an old man who lived one day at a time. He still wanted to live a few more years and not get involved in the Guo family's matters. He also had to remind Xiao Jin that even if he had the ability, he shouldn't get involved with a family like the Guo family. Who knew what the other party would do? Chapter 9:29. Xiao Fei and Mu Qiji were curious, but they could only wait until Mu Qiji came back tomorrow. Before they came back, Xiao Jin's matter was dealt with first. For example, the Guo family's matter. Although Qian Lu said that he forgot where he killed Guo Jieshi's wife and threw her body, he still remembered that he had killed so many people. The police investigated in the direction he said and finally found Guo Jieshi's wife's body. Qian Lu mixed up her body with another dead person's. Fortunately, Guo Jieshi's wife's body was not thrown in a dark corner or in the sea, but in the wild. It was just that the wild was a dense forest, and no one had visited it for many years. When the police found the body with a police dog, it had already turned into a pile of bones. They preliminarily identified the bones as a woman, and the other people Qian Lu killed in Shandu were all men, so the possibility of this woman being Guo Jieshi's wife was very high. Because it had been a long time, it was difficult to verify the identity, but the police contacted Guo Jieshi's son, Guo Ziqing, and asked him to provide information. Through the comparison of current technology, it was finally confirmed that the bones were indeed Guo Jieshi's wife, Lei Yonglan. Now that the identity was verified, and with Qian Lu's statement, even though Guo Jieshi was now very old, he was still taken away by the police for investigation. This sudden incident, of course, caused a sensation in the entire Guo family. Guo Jieshi was taken away at night. It was said that the Guo family did not sleep at all that night, completely stunned by the sudden news. How could the younger generation of the Guo family know what happened in the past? Strangely, there was news that the police took Guo Ziqing away at that time. He did not seem surprised that the police took his father away and accused him of hiring someone to kill. Mu Xiangshan learned the news the next day when he got up. Because Xiao Jin was also an insider, Mu Xiangshan waited for her to wake up at the dinner table and asked her, "Do you think it could be Guo Jieshi's son?" Xiao Jin thought for a moment and said, "According to what you said, it's not impossible." Guo Ziqing was Guo Jieshi's son, and the father and son had a good relationship for so many years. Guo Jieshi certainly did not guard against him. Only Guo Ziqing had the best opportunity to make a move. Mu Xiangshan frowned and said, "People outside say that Fuguei and Guo Ziqing have a good relationship. If it's really Guo Ziqing, did he already know that his mother's death was related to his father?" Xiao Fei woke up early in the morning and heard the two of them talking about gossip that she didn't understand. She immediately interrupted the conversation forcefully. "What do you mean that the father is related to the mother's death? What kind of melodramatic plot is that?" Xiao Jin glanced at Xiao Fei, then looked at Mu Xiangshan and nodded. "It's very possible." No matter how good the relationship between father and son was, and no matter how much he knew that his father had hired someone to kill his mother, it was possible for him to have a twisted mind. It was understandable for Guo Ziqing to secretly make a move, but it wasn't enough to completely erase the suspicions of the other Guo family members. After all, once Guo Jieshi died, it would be time to divide the assets. However, Guo Ziqing was still alive. No matter how one looked at it, It could only be that he had inherited the most wealth. Whether it was in terms of vested interests or logic, Guo Zicheng was the biggest suspect. Of course, the police did not know that Guo Jiesher had been poisoned. They were investigating the case of Guo Jiesher hiring a killer. Chapter 930. Xiao Fei wasn't too happy. You can't keep talking about things I don't know. Xiao Jin briefly told him about the Guo family. Xiao Fei was dumbfounded. What's going on? Xiao Jin said, you've watched so many TV dramas. Do you still find these things strange? Xiao Fei said, girl, TV dramas and reality are two completely different concepts. In reality, this Guo Jiesher is too much, right? Xiao Jin said, calm down. You'll get used to it. Xiao Fei. How can anyone get used to this kind of thing? How scary. Mu Xiangshan sighed. I'll go see him today. After all, Guo Jiesher was already in the police station. They couldn't pretend that they didn't know anything. At the same time, he said, there's a high chance that he'll be released. It's been too long, and Guo Jiesher is so old now. Even if they find evidence that he killed his father, there's nothing they can do. Guo Zicheng probably thought of this, and that's why he attacked his father himself. They just didn't expect that the scourge would live for 1,000 years. He was already poisoned, and it looked like he was going to die soon. Xiao Jin said, we can't be sure that it's Guo Zicheng yet. Mu Xiangshan said, most likely. He still had speculations about some things, but Mu Xiangshan didn't care about the other aspects of the Guo family. For example, the array formation. After breakfast, he set off to the police station to find out more about Guo Jiesher. Xiao Fei said to Xiao Jin, since you have nothing to do at home, why don't you come with me to the airport to pick up your big brother? Xiao Jin was a little confused. Isn't he going to come back by himself? The people from the company should be there to pick him up. Aren't you going to pick him up because you want to know about him and Song Suyu? Xiao Fei didn't mind being exposed. He said confidently, Jin, aren't you curious? Xiao Jin, not curious. Xiao Fei. There was nothing to talk about. Since her daughter wasn't going with her, Xiao Fei could only give up on this plan resentfully. At the same time, she asked her to ask Song Yanqing if the Song family knew about this news. However, Xiao Jin felt that if Song Yanqing knew, he would tell him. If he didn't say anything now, it meant that the Song family didn't know. After all, Song Suyu and Mu Qiji had only confirmed their relationship 2 days ago. Out of consideration, Song Suyu wouldn't tell the Song family so quickly. It could only be said that the Mu clan had guessed it too quickly. Mu Qiji would only be home in the afternoon. Xiao Jin was not important for now. She had to go to school. She couldn't always skip classes. Even if the professional classes weren't stressful for her, she still had to pay attention to the other classes. It was almost the holidays, and the weather was getting colder and colder. She was now used to wearing more clothes. She wore a knitted jacket over a sweater, and her whole person showed a kind of peaceful feeling. Walking on the campus, she was still the most eye-catching light in the crowd. In fact, compared with other things, Xiao Jin was simply too low-key in school. She didn't participate in any club or school activities, so she wasn't very outstanding in school. Even if she was the campus belle, she wasn't very conspicuous. In addition, she didn't participate in any competitions. She wasn't as outstanding as Musichu and the others. Now the students had tacitly agreed that Xiao Jin was a beautiful vase. Even if she was the first in the professional class, so what? She didn't seem to think about her future. So far, she hadn't done anything else. Chapter 931. Xiao Jin naturally didn't care about these speculations. He returned to school for a day, and then it was time for the holidays. During the weekend, the teacher looked for Xiao Jin to have a chat. He wanted to know what Xiao Jin thought about the future. After all, he would be in his 4th year next semester, and he would have to start preparing for graduation. After all, this was Yanhui University. Xiao Jin was simply an anomaly. Even now, he still hadn't made any preparations. The teacher was confused. Xiao Jin's answer was naturally to leave it to fate. The teacher was speechless. How could his graduation plan be left to fate? As expected, with money, there was no need to worry about such things. The teacher could only sigh. After school, Xiao Jin didn't get the driver to pick him up. The main reason was that Duan Nianru, who he hadn't seen for a long time, had called to ask him out. Xiao Jin nodded. She had seen many people, but everyone had their own lives. Unless it was necessary, there was no need to disturb them. Duan Nianru also wasn't suitable to be involved in such matters. When she saw Xiao Jin again, she was very excited. Xiao Jin, long time no see. Xiao Jin nodded. It hasn't been too long. How have your studies been? Duan Nianru's face fell. Why are you bringing up studies? She thought for a moment and suddenly asked, Is your second brother doing well? Xiao Jin grunted and said with a smile, You mean Chi Chu? He's doing well. Previously, Duan Nianru had saved Musichu. Later on, she had gotten to know Musichu. However, they didn't meet every day. At the start, Musichu had treated her to a meal to repay her for saving his life. Later on, nothing happened, and the two of them rarely met. A girl's first love was always there. Thinking of Musichu's appearance, Duan Nianru's heart couldn't help pounding. However, she knew that Musichu only treated her as a little sister. She wasn't Musichu's type. Saving someone once wasn't enough to make the other party devote themselves to him. Duan Nianru had only saved him, and she wouldn't do such a thing. Moreover, he was the second brother of a big shot. Oh, Duan Nianru was stunned for a moment before she explained her purpose. I came to tell you that I'm going abroad as an exchange student. Xiao Jin was a little surprised. Don't exchange students have to have good grades to go? Duan Nianru was well aware of her results. Duan Nianru's face reddened. It's not because of my grades. It's just a coincidence. I got to know a professor from a foreign school who does special biological experiments. I'm interested in this field, and I have some talent for it. Although it doesn't have anything to do with my major, it's still not too late for me to change my major. Their school just happens to have an exchange quota with our school, and he wanted me to go over. Professor? Xiao Jin looked at Duan Nianru. When he didn't see any fluctuations coming from her, he paused for a moment before nodding. Since it's your own choice, I'll naturally support you. Study well overseas. If you're not used to it, I can introduce you to a unit. It's easy and has a lot of money. In any case, he was a formation master. If Duan Nianru needed help in the future, he wouldn't mind pushing her to the spirit group. Duan Nianru thought for a moment before smiling. I know. Thank you. That's why I asked you out this time. I want to treat you to a meal before I go abroad. Chapter 932. Mu Qiji was coming back, but since Duan Nianru was leaving, Xiao Jin naturally had to accompany her for a meal. She nodded and went with Duan Nianru to the place she had booked. When Mu Qiji returned home, Xiao Fei called Xiao Jin to ask why she wasn't coming home. Xiao Jin said she would be back later. Xiao Fei could only say that it was a pity that Mu Qiji was back, and she couldn't face the scene of the gossip. Xiao Jin. She went to eat dinner with Duan Nianru. But for some reason, the dinner wasn't too peaceful. She knew something was about to happen, but there were too many people involved. It was hard for her to guess what it was. When the dinner was about to end, Song Yanqing called her. I received a special message that you will definitely want to know about. Xiao Jin knew that it definitely wasn't related to Mu Qiji. What's wrong? My subordinates received a special message. Guo Julian appeared at the high-speed train station with a fake identity. She should be trying to escape. Right now, the Guo family is looking for her everywhere. They've already found her location, so there's a high chance she won't be able to escape. Guo Julian? Xiao Jin frowned. Could it be that the restlessness came from her? She wanted to run? No wonder. Why would she run? What had happened for Guo Julian to use a fake identity to escape? Then she must have been planning this for a long time. It's related to her sister. But I'll tell you now, you might not know about the secular world. It's related to her sister, Guo Zhui. Why don't you let her tell you personally? Right now, even Hao Jiuzong's people are chasing after her. Why don't you take this opportunity to bring her back? Do you need my help? Xiao Jin said, It's fine. I'll go. The high-speed train station was too crowded. It would be easy for her to bring someone away. Song Yanqing was right. Since Guo Julian wanted to escape, something must have happened. She might as well bring Guo Julian back. Song Yanqing. Okay, I'll send you a message. When Xiao Jin received the news, he naturally went to pick up Guo Julian. Since she was running away, then something terrible must have happened to the Gua family. Now that Gua Jieshur had been taken away, the Gua clan was in a mess. It was indeed a good opportunity to escape. After sending Duan Nianra back, Qiao Jin used a formation to appear near the high-speed railway station. In Song Yanqing's message, Gua Julian had disguised herself and was now alone in the high-speed train station. There were many people following her, and she was probably very scared. She was too easy to hide, but she was also very easy to catch. Gua Julian was wearing a gray coat, a hat, sunglasses, and a mask. She coughed from time to time, so she could perfectly disguise herself as a patient. At the very least, it wouldn't make others feel strange. But in truth, she didn't need to disguise herself. She was a patient. She was curled up in a chair. The ticket in her hand showed that she still needed to wait for 20 minutes before the high-speed train would depart. She was a bit anxious and she looked at the ticket gate. It hadn't even opened yet. She grew more and more flustered. The more crucial the moment was, the more urgent she became. She wanted to escape. She wanted to leave this city. No, she wanted to leave the Gua family. She didn't want to stay in the Gua family and become Gua Zhui's painful substitute, bearing all the pain for her. Why? Why? Every time she thought of this, her tears would fall. Chapter 933. She couldn't make any strange appearances, or it would alert others. She was already very eye-catching, and some people would even wonder if she was a star. But just as Gua Julian looked around uneasily, she saw a few people coming in from the other side of the high-speed railway station through the sunglasses. They were wearing black suits, and they were obviously looking for someone. It was not safe after passing the security check. They could come in as they wanted. Gua Julian recognized that one of them was Hao Jiuzong's bodyguard, and her face suddenly changed. Why didn't he let her go? Why did he help Gua Zhui to torture her? Gua Julian couldn't help crying. She trembled and turned her head hurriedly, not daring to move at all. She was afraid that the more she moved, the more she would attract the attention of the people around her. But they were coming. She looked up at the notice board. It didn't show green, which meant that she couldn't enter the station yet. At this moment, she felt a light pat on her shoulder. Gua Julian trembled and almost screamed in fright. A low voice sounded in her ear. Gua Julian heard a familiar female voice and turned her head in horror. The girl was wearing a white long coat with long hair. She also wore a simple pair of sunglasses like her. But even so, it couldn't hide her fairy aura. It was just that people couldn't see her specific appearance. But Gua Julian recognized her instantly. It was Qiao Jin, the Qiao Jin who appeared at her house that day. Her appearance here made Gua Julian tremble, because she didn't know if Qiao Jin was also here to catch her. Qiao Jin put his index finger between his lips, grabbed her arm, and whispered, "Follow me, or they will find you." Gua Julian's eyes widened. She hesitated for only a second, and then followed Qiao Jin without hesitation. Qiao Jin kept grabbing her wrist. Gua Julian found that she was going straight in the direction of the bodyguard. She was a little frightened and said in a crying voice, "We will be caught." "No, trust me, they won't find out." Qiao Jin's tone was very light, faintly carrying the power to pacify her, making Gua Julian gradually feel more at ease. Qiao Jin led her through the crowd and directly past the bodyguards. Logically speaking, it was indeed strange that the two of them were wearing sunglasses and one of them was wearing a mask. However, the bodyguard turned a blind eye and walked past them. Gua Julian was so surprised that she couldn't help but look back. She realized that the bodyguards were indeed not paying attention to her and Qiao Jin at all. What was going on? She was stunned. At this moment, Qiao Jin continued to speak as he walked. "It's stupid of you to run away. How can you trust the person who gave you his ID card? He is one of Hao Jiuzong's men." Gua Julian's face paled. How is that possible? That was her brother who had watched her grow up, even though he was the son of the butler. He said that he couldn't stand Gua Julian's pitiful experience in the Gua family, so he helped her by forging a fake ID card and giving her a bus ticket just to let her leave here. Today, Gua Jieshur was caught, and the Gua family was in chaos, so she had a chance to run away. However, she was soon discovered. After all, the Gua family always reacted quickly when she disappeared. Gua Zhui couldn't leave her. Chapter 934. I'll tell you why later. Now just come with me. Outside the station, Xiao Jin even flagged down a car and gave Meng Qingyu's address. In the car, Guo couldn't help but look at Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin took off his sunglasses. His clear and bright eyes were calm as he looked at her. What do you want to know? Guo thought for a moment, took off her mask, and said in a low voice, I want to know why you came to save me. Or whether you save her or not. She still had some doubts. Xiao Jin, I'll tell you when we get there. In fact, the latter information was found out by Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing said that it was better for Guo to say it herself. Of course, Xiao Jin already had a faint premonition that it would be another dramatic story. The people she had saved and brought back to lead the array points always had troubled backgrounds. Meng Qingyu, Yang Qiulu, Mo Jiang, and Peng Yuan. Mo Jiang was the only one who lost his memory, but Song Yanqing saw the high priest pass from her. He also knew that she carried the life of restoring the country, so she must be very miserable. Could it be that all the people with the array point were miserable? But there were worse, so the selection criteria of the array point was a bit confusing. Guo lowered her head, and her fingers clutched her pants tightly. She was still a little uneasy. She was too scared. Even now, when she thought about coming back with Xiao Jin, she didn't know why she followed Xiao Jin. Could Xiao Jin be trusted? She wasn't sure, but she inexplicably felt that there was a power in him that made her believe in him. And now that she had followed him, if Xiao Jin wanted to do anything, she couldn't resist. Her body was too weak. In fact, as long as she didn't return to the Guo family, she could go anywhere. At the same time, the Guo family's bodyguards and the Hao family's bodyguards, who found nothing at the high-speed rail station, finally confirmed that Guo was missing. The fact that the train hadn't left yet could only mean one thing. Guo didn't come to the high-speed rail station at all. However, they had received the message. Guo was clearly at the high-speed railway station and had even seen the message. Hao Jiuzong's bodyguard could only tell the news to Hao Jiuzong. When Hao Jiuzong received the call, he stood in front of the transparent glass of the hotel and looked at the night view outside. His eyes were very dark, and there was even a hint of anger. She ran away? The bodyguard could only bite the bullet and answer, Yes, we've searched everywhere, but we couldn't find her anywhere. We checked the high-speed rail station surveillance, but we couldn't find Miss Guo. It was as if she had evaporated into thin air. Hao Jiuzong gloomily said, We have spies in the airport, the bus station, and the high-speed rail station. If she's not here, then she hasn't left the capital. Find her even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground. He hung up the phone and tugged at his tie. He had never been so irritable before. There was even a kind of panic that he had never felt before. Where could she run to? The capital was so big. If she couldn't run out, wouldn't she just be waiting for death with her body? She would rather die than save her sister? Hao Jiuzong's eyes darkened. He took out his phone again and dialed a number. His voice was low and calm again. Yanqing, I need your help. The person on the other end of the phone raised his eyebrows slightly, then replied gently, Okay, tell me. I'll help you as long as I can. Chapter 935. Xiao Jin had just arrived at Meng Qingyu's house with Guo. She knocked on the door, thinking that Mo Jiang should be here now. She never filmed at night, so she was even more pretentious than the male and female leads. While waiting for the door to open, Guo looked left and right in a panic. She had never been to such a small place. She was used to staying in the Guo family and had never seen the outside world, so she didn't know that this was a place where ordinary people lived. But the smaller it was, the more uneasy she felt. Mainly, if someone came to catch her, it would be difficult for her to escape. The room wasn't soundproof, so she could vaguely hear the mother scolding the child from next door. You don't even know how to solve this problem? Don't you know how to solve a linear equation of 2 variables? Didn't your teacher teach you? How can you be so stupid? She could even hear the child retorting, My parents' genes are like this. How can I be any better? What followed was the scene of the mother wailing and the child being filial. Guo was speechless. She didn't know why, but she relaxed again. Xiao Jin frowned and knocked on the door again. She could feel that there was someone in the house. It was Mo Jiang. I'm coming, I'm coming. Aren't you going to let me take a shower? A coquettish female voice sounded. Soon, footsteps came over, and the door was opened. The woman wearing a mask and a bathrobe gave Guo a shock. Mo Jiang looked at Xiao Jin and then at Guo. Why did you bring a child back? Guo was slightly stunned when she saw Mo Jiang in front of her. She couldn't see Mo Jiang's face through the mask, but judging from his figure, this woman's figure was too good. Xiao Jin walked in with Guo and closed the door behind her. Seeing that Guo was still a little scared, Xiao Jin comforted her. Don't be afraid. No one will find you. The Hao family and the Guo family will never find this place. I can promise you that. Only then did Guo feel relieved. She took off her sunglasses, revealing a pale face that was simple yet elegant. She actually looked very lively, unlike her sister's temperament. It was just that his lips were a little pale and his whole body was trembling because of nervousness. His face was too pale to look at. She was an exquisite and lively pretty girl. Yo. Mo Jiang suddenly bent down and scratched Guo cheek with his fingertips. Where did this poor thing come from? Why are you so scared? What's wrong? Are you being mistreated by your family? Or do your parents favor boys over girls? Wasn't this the tragic fate of Meng Qingyu and Yang Qiulu? Mo Jiang naturally expected the person Xiao Jin brought back. Guo was touched by his red fingernails and trembled. Seeing her trembling like a small animal, Mo Jiang became more interested. What's wrong? Do you think I'm scary? Don't tease her. Xiao Jin sat on the other side and poured a glass of water for Guo. She just ran out of the house. It's normal for her to be scared. She's now afraid of being caught. Mo Jiang curled his lips and put his elbow on the sofa. Did her parents hit her? Xiao Jin shook his head. It's not like that. Let her say it herself. Guo eyelashes trembled. She took the water that Xiao Jin poured for her and held the glass. She looked a little pitiful. Can you help me? Xiao Jin nodded. Of course. Otherwise, why would I bring you back? In fact, he didn't care what happened to Guo, but Mo Jiang obviously wanted to know. Chapter 936. Hearing this, Guo nose twitched and tears came out. I really don't want to go back. I don't want to be caught. Seeing her cry, Mo Jiang sighed. Don't cry. Just tell me. If you cry like this, people who don't know will think that we're bullying you. Xiao Jin said. There is no one else. Let her cry. Mo Jiang, tisk, how pitiful. Guo said in tears. I was told by my mother since I was young that I was born because of my sister. My sister's health isn't good. Other than bearing her pain, I also have to donate bone marrow to her. But it's too painful. I don't want to donate anymore. I heard my mother say. Speaking of this, she became more agitated and her tears fell faster. She said that there is no need for me to exist. Guo did not understand some things, such as the array. She only heard her mother talking to someone on the phone. Her mother's words indicated that her time was up and she would not live for long. She did not know how it would end, but she was very scared. That was why she chose to escape today. Fortunately, Guo's incident happened. Otherwise, she would not have been able to escape from the Guo family's bodyguards. Guo had a melodramatic story. The original version could be found in the TV series that Xiao Fei watched. Guo was born for her sister. She was born as a tool because she had the right bone marrow. She needed to donate her bone marrow to Guo. Therefore, her mother did not allow her to leave the Guo family. She had to be prepared to sacrifice her life for Guo at any time. She was tied to Guo with a life-linking array. As a healthy person, she would feel pain every once in a while. Moreover, after donating her bone marrow, Guo's body was getting weaker and weaker. However, she could still hold on. She thought that since Guo's health improved and she did not need to donate her bone marrow, she would be free. She did not expect to hear her mother say that there was no need for her to live. She had never thought that her mother would throw away her own life. She was shocked and desperate. That was why she tried her best to escape from the Guo family. When Xiao Jin went that day, this had not happened yet, so she was very calm at that time. Because of Guo Jieshi's incident, some things were messed up. That was why she had an opportunity to take advantage of, and her mother had accidentally revealed her intentions. After listening to Guo Julian's melodramatic story, Mo Jiang commented, "I don't think the drama I acted in was very exciting. The degree of ups and downs in this plot was completely incomparable to Guo Julian and Meng Qingyu." Xiao Jin glanced at her, then looked at Guo Julian and said, "It's fine now. I can guarantee that you won't return to the Guo clan. But I also want you to know that you are bound to your sister by the life-binding formation. Your mother didn't want you to live because she wanted to give your life to Guo Zhui, so that Guo Zhui wouldn't have any worries. Although Guo Zhui's body had almost recovered, she was still far from a normal person. Not to mention how ruthless her mother was, sacrificing one to protect the other. Now that Xiao Jin knew about it, he would not let it happen." Guo Julian was stunned. What is the life-binding formation? She could understand that her life was tied to her sister's, but she had never heard of such a formation. Chapter 937. Mo Jiang grabbed a handful of melon seeds and gave 2 to Guo Julian, saying, "This is a world you can't imagine. In short, you have to know that if you want to live a healthy life as a normal person, the life-linking formation between you and your sister must be lifted. Otherwise, if something happens to her, you can't live. If she lives, you live. If she dies, you die." Guo Julian understood such a simple truth, but she was shocked. She thought that she was just a mobile tool to donate organs to Guo Zhui since she was a child. Now, even her life was prepared for the other party. Of course, Guo Julian immediately said, "Can this formation be lifted?" No one was born with the spirit of sacrifice. She had lived for so many years, and she didn't want to be tortured like this again. Of course, she had to lift the formation as soon as possible. Xiao Jin said, "Of course." Mo Jiang said meaningfully, "You have to know that if the life-linking formation is lifted with your sister's body, she won't be able to hold on and will die. Do you have the heart to do that?" Guo Julian's face turned pale. Xiao Jin said, "Don't talk about this here." Xiao Jin was even more ruthless. "She has the formation points. No matter what, nothing can happen to her." Guo Zhui's matter was no better than Song Yanqing's and Ferdinand's. Even if Guo Julian was born for this reason, she was still a life. A person's life was a person's life, and no one was qualified to take her life. Guo Julian's mother had done it herself, and it was obvious that Guo Zhui knew these things. They trapped Guo Julian in the Guo family for this reason, and didn't dare to let Guo Julian appear in front of the public. At this moment, Xiao Jin's phone rang. She looked and saw that it was Song Yanqing, so she picked it up. "Hao Jiuzong just called me?" Song Yanqing, of course, was calling to inform. "He wants to borrow my power to investigate Guo Julian's whereabouts." After all, Hao Jiuzong was from Shanghai, and his power in the capital was far less than that of the Song family. It was natural for him to ask the Song family for help. Xiao Jin said naturally, just brushing him off. Hao Jiuzong certainly didn't know that Guo Julian's disappearance had something to do with Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing laughed and said, "Of course I won't tell him that he's with you now." Xiao Jin nodded. "I almost understand what's going on. Guo Julian can't go back. Her mother plans to make a move and completely give her life to Guo Zhui." Song Yanqing said, "I know. I will deal with Hao Jiuzong. You hide her for the time being and don't let her out." Xiao Jin, "Okay." After hanging up the phone, Guo Julian was a little nervous when she heard that they were talking about her. Her tears were almost gone. Xiao Jin looked at her and said, "Don't worry, just stay here and don't go out. I'll remove the life-linking formation on you. You can live like a normal person from now on." Once the Guo clan's matter is settled, you can appear in front of others. You don't need to worry about the Guo clan anymore. Guo Julian was still afraid, but there's still brother Jiuzong. Hao Jiuzong was Guo Zhui's fiancé and was also from a big family in Shanghai. Guo Julian seemed to be somewhat familiar with him. After all, it was Hao Jiuzong who asked Song Yanqing to investigate Guo Julian's whereabouts, which meant that Hao Jiuzong knew something. Mo Jiang asked her again, "Who is Hao Jiuzong?" Guo Julian hesitated and said with a bit of sadness, "My sister's fiancé." Chapter 938. Mo Jiang was indeed a woman who often acted nowadays. Although her acting wasn't good, she was quite good at judging other people's emotions. His interest was immediately piqued, and a light flashed in his eyes. "You like Hao Jiuzong?" Her direct question made Guo look at her in shock. However, she quickly lowered her face and said sadly, "He's my sister's fiancé. I know it's wrong for me to like him." But she couldn't help but say sadly, "He said that as long as I'm obedient and treat my sister well, he'll take care of me for the rest of my life." Guo had been trapped in the Guo family and had seen very few men. It wasn't hard to understand why she was attracted to the tall and handsome Hao Jiuzong. After all, she was a young girl. Mo Jiang was speechless. Xiao Jin was speechless. Mo Jiang said suspiciously, "I don't understand the direction of this story." Xiao Jin didn't intend to ask in detail. She just said, "So Hao Jiuzong is helping to track you down because he wants you to go back. Does he know that you'll lose your life?" Guo shook her head and said, "I don't know." She didn't know if Hao Jiuzong knew about it or not. Xiao Jin said, "It doesn't matter if he knows or not. In short, he wants you to go back and save Guo's life. You can't go back. You want to live too. So stay here. Mo Jiang will take care of you. If you really want to go out, you can follow Mo Jiang to the set. No one will catch you." With Mo Jiang's strength, ordinary people couldn't do anything to the people around her. Mo Jiang was interested. She touched Guo chin and said, "You're young and good-looking. Why can't you figure out that you like men?" Xiao Jin was speechless. Guo looked up at her with teary eyes. Mo Jiang sneered, "Poor thing, all men are pigs. Your sister is not a good person, and her fiancé is even worse. Your family members are not good people either. You don't have to go back. Just stay by my side in the future. You can have any spare tire you want." Xiao Jin interrupted the bad thoughts that Mo Jiang was trying to instill in him and said to Guo, "That's all for now. Are you hungry? Get Mo Jiang to order takeout. I need to go back tonight, so you can stay here. If anything happens, just give me a call. Sometimes there are 2 other girls in this house. Their experiences are similar to yours. You don't have to be afraid." Guo nodded and asked with uncertainty, Will I really not be caught?" "That won't happen," Mo Jiang said coquettishly. "If you were taken away right under my nose, wouldn't I lose face? Don't worry, no matter who comes looking for you, I'll take care of it for you. I guarantee that there won't be any problems." Xiao Jin asked, "What have you been watching recently?" Mo Jiang said, "My script just happened to be at the demonization stage. I kill people like flies." Xiao Jin was speechless. Guo clearly did not understand Mo Jiang's occupation, but Xiao Jin was going to leave. Of course, before she left, she removed the life-binding array on Guo. The moment the life-binding array was removed, Guo felt her body lighten. She could not describe the good feeling, but she felt as if a heavy burden that had been weighing on her for many years had been lifted. Guo, who was far away in the Guo family's mansion, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Guo's mother, who was standing beside her, screamed, "Zhui, what happened to you? What happened to you?" Chapter 939. Guo spat out a mouthful of blood and felt her whole body become heavy. She was in pain, but she couldn't tell where the pain was coming from. Her face turned pale, and she grabbed her mother's arm tightly, saying in pain, "Mom, I'm in so much pain now, so much pain." Cheng Yujun looked at her daughter and said in a trembling voice, "What's going on? What's going on?" She hugged Guo, feeling scared. "You haven't had a relapse for a long time, have you? What's going on? Doctor!" she screamed. Fortunately, the Guo family had a family doctor, so he could observe Guo's condition at any time. Guo Zicheng and his father, Guo Jieshe, had been taken to the police station and hadn't returned yet. The Guo family was in chaos today, and Guo had run away. They hadn't found her until now. Guo's sudden relapse scared Cheng Yujun. She treated Guo as her life, so she didn't want to see anything happen to her. The family doctor came to check Guo's condition. He frowned and said directly, "We don't have the conditions to do the test. Send her to the hospital immediately." Hurry up. Chung Yujun was dumbfounded when she heard that she would be sent to the hospital. Her daughter's immune system had been very weak since birth, and she was easily infected. When she was young, she had a particularly serious illness. Fortunately, everything changed with Guojulian's birth. The older Guojui got, the better her body recovered. It had been 2 years since her last relapse. Because of this, Chung Yujun was completely unprepared. Hearing the doctor's words, she could only ask the doctor what was going on, but the doctor just shook his head. The Guo family didn't have the conditions to do the test. Guojui's condition had to wait for the hospital to finish the examination. Chung Yujun suddenly thought of Guojulian, who had run away. Where did she go? When she rushed to the hospital with Guojui and saw her daughter in pain, Chung Yujun's heart was about to break. Guojui had been her life since she was a child. She valued her daughter more than anything else, so she didn't want anything to happen to her. Looking at Guojui's pale face and how she was in so much pain that she looked like she was about to faint, she thought of the missing Guojulian and suddenly had an ominous feeling in her heart. Left with no choice, Chung Yujun immediately made a call. After the call was connected, Chung Yujun's voice trembled. Jian, something happened. Can you come to the capital? I think something is wrong with Jui. Her sister went missing today. The person on the other end of the line didn't say anything and quickly hung up. Chung Yujun hugged Guojui. Seeing her painful expression, she kept hugging her. Jui, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Mother will save you. Mother will definitely find someone to save you. Guojui pinched the corner of her clothes and said with some pain, I want to see Brother Jiozong. She wanted to see the person she liked. I'll call them right away. Mom will call them right away. Hearing this, Chung Yujun immediately took out her mobile phone and called Hao Jiozong. Guojui suddenly had an accident, and as her fiancé, he was also in the capital, so it was reasonable for him to come and see Guojui. He would definitely find Guojulian. This was his promise to himself. Thinking of Guojulian, a trace of hatred flashed across Chung Yujun's eyes. She was born to sacrifice everything for her sister. How dare she run away? Chapter 940. Xiao Jin went straight home after settling Guojulian's matter. Something would happen to Guojui, but she wouldn't die. After all, she was mostly focused on her physical condition. Guojulian had donated her bone marrow, and her illness was now getting better. He just didn't know how Guojulian's mother could be so ruthless as to want to kill Guojulian. Now that Guojulian was with Mo Jiang, Xiao Jin was very relieved. Mu Qiji also came home. They must be wondering what Xiao Jin was doing. They had made several calls, and Xiao Jin should go back. When he returned to the Mu family, it was rare for the Mu family to gather together. Everyone was there. Muzilian sat next to Muzichu, slumped on the sofa, and played mobile games. Muzichu sat next to him, and Mu Qiji sat on the other sofa with his legs elegantly crossed. Qiao Fei and Mu Jinming sat together, and Mu Xiangshan was fiddling with something on the table in the living room. Seeing that Xiao Jin was back, the Mu family turned to look at him. Qiao Fei complained as usual. Jin, I told you that big brother is coming back today. Why are you still coming home so late? I was busy with something. After Xiao Jin said this, he greeted Mu Qiji. Qiji. Mu Qiji. Yes. No matter how long it had been, she was still not used to Xiao Jin calling her by her name. But she couldn't help it. She was too willful. Mu Xiangshan looked up from a pile of things and asked her, What did you do? There were many things in the Guo family today. Mu Xiangshan received news that someone seemed to be missing in the Mu family. Thinking of what Xiao Jin said, Mu Xiangshan now seriously suspected that the missing person was with Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin smiled at him. His expression meant that as long as he understood, there was no need to ask. How could Mu Xiangshan not understand? He sighed. He felt that he could not control Xiao Jin. When the rest of the Mu family saw that Mu Xiangshan still had a secret with Xiao Jin, they were a little surprised. Mu Jinming asked, What are you busy with? Xiao Jin walked over and sat down on the single-seater sofa. He said in a casual tone, I was just busy with something. My friend needs my help with something. What's wrong? She looked at Mu Qiji and changed the topic with a smile. Big brother, Why are you dating Song Yanqing's sister? Xiao Fei, we've already discussed this topic. It's your fault for not coming back. Let's not talk about it now. Xiao Jin. Mu Qiji saw Xiao Jin's stagnant appearance and chuckled. Naturally, we met by chance abroad. We met and chatted and had a meal together. We felt that the chat was quite pleasant. After getting along for a few days, we decided to try dating. A few days later, the speed was really fast. Xiao Jin nodded. He was no longer curious. Just then, Mu Xiangshan called again. He picked up the phone and went upstairs. Xiao Jin glanced at Mu Xiangshan. Mu Jinming's face suddenly turned serious. Xiao Jin, there are some things that we should talk about while the whole family is here. Xiao Jin. Another big criticism session. When Mu Zillion heard his father's words, he glanced at Xiao Jin and slowly sat up straight. He did not want to be affected by the storm later. After all, this kind of thing had happened before. Xiao Fei agreed with Mu Jinming. Since your big brother is here, we should talk to you properly. Do you know that your form teacher called? Chapter 941. Yes, as a student, Xiao Jin had to face the same problems that every student would face, even if she was already in university. Your homeroom teacher said that you often apply for leave. How many times did you go this semester? What's more ridiculous is that we didn't know you applied for leave. Some of the fake Xiao Fei didn't know what was going on. She didn't even know who applied for Xiao Jin. She even suspected that it was Mu Zillion and Mu Zichu. Mu Jinming also looked at Xiao Jin and said earnestly, Xiao Jin, what's the matter? We're a family now. Can we talk about it? What are you doing when you apply for leave so often? Xiao Jin blinked and answered naturally, I'm going to do something big. Everyone. Mu Qiji also looked at Xiao Jin with disapproval. However, now that his parents were criticizing Xiao Jin, he didn't say anything. Mu Zichu and Mu Zillion, the two insiders, watched the show silently. What big things are you doing? Xiao Fei snorted. What big things can a girl like you do? Xiao Jin said seriously, Fei, this is my secret. It's not suitable to tell you now. Look at Xiang Shan. He never talks much. Xiao Fei. Your grandfather doesn't care about you at all. We care about you. Mu Jinming didn't quite agree with Xiao Jin. You apply for leave so often. Should we not ask about it? Is that showing respect to you? Xiao Jin nodded. I know what you mean. I also know that you care about me. But there are some things that I can't tell you now. I've already said that I read fortune-telling shops online. Sometimes, not only do I need to read fortunes online, but I also need to help people deal with misfortune in real life. This involves feudal superstition. No matter how I explain, you won't believe me. Mu Qiji, Mu Jinming, and Xiao Fei. Mu Zillion couldn't help but laugh out loud. His laughter immediately attracted the attention of his family members. Mu Zillion coughed. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. I couldn't help it. Mu Zichu pinched Mu Zillion's waist, signaling him to be quiet. Now that the flames of war were focused on Xiao Jin, there was no need to attract any extra attention. When Mu Qiji heard this, he was a little confused. Are you serious about opening a fortune-telling shop online? When did you learn how to deceive people? Xiao Jin waved his hand. I don't lie. I usually don't lie. Besides, my calculations are very accurate and my business is good. Xiao Fei couldn't help but ask, Jin, what's wrong with you? How can you use words to fool us? Don't tell me you're outside. Did he do something illegal? When he thought of this, Xiao Fei's face turned a little pale. Xiao Jin sighed. It's not what you think. I do things properly. However, the more she clarified, the more the Mu family didn't believe her. At this moment, Mu Xiangshan came down from a phone call. When he heard Xiao Fei and the rest questioning Xiao Jin, he immediately put his hands behind his back and said impatiently, Hurry up and tell them to rebuild their worldview. You don't have to find an excuse to dance in the future. Xiao Jin. Everyone, Mu Zillion looked at Mu Xiangshan in shock. Grandpa, you know about this? Mu Xiangshan also looked at Mu Zillion with a rare look of surprise. Even you know about it? Xiao Jin didn't mention what happened to Mu Zillion, so Mu Xiangshan naturally didn't know that his grandson knew about it. Mu Zichu also narrowed his eyes. You all know about it? Very good. Only he didn't know. Mu Qiji. Chapter 942. As the eldest brother, Mu Qiji felt that he hadn't been home for so long that he was excluded from the family secrets. Mu Zhiming couldn't take it anymore. You know everything? What are you trying to say? Dad, what's going on between you and Xiao Jin? What do you mean what's going on? Mu Xiangshan stood by the stairs and sneered at them. I can't interfere in her affairs. We don't belong to the same world. If you want to know, ask her. Xiao Jin also felt that Mu Xiangshan's words made sense. Sooner or later, she would have to say it. Now, Muzilian and Muzichu already knew. Looking at Muzichu's expression, she was 80% sure that he had been suspicious for a long time. She thought for a moment and organized her words. Okay, I'll tell you what I did outside when I asked for leave. I'll also let you know that this world isn't what you think it is. Mu Zhiming and the other two. The other three already knew what was going on, so they weren't surprised at this time. Qiao Fei held Mu Zhiming's arm and looked at Xiao Jin worriedly. Jin, are you... At that time, she was too stimulated and hurt her brain. So, she didn't have a good time. Actually, there are not only ordinary people in this world. Other than ordinary people, there are also spiritual readers. Xiao Jin said this set of words that she had said countless times. The Mu family were all high-quality people. When she spoke, they listened carefully. Even if their minds were thinking about whether Xiao Jin's illness was serious enough to be sent to the hospital for observation. Xiao Jin only briefly talked about how she dealt with spiritual readers outside. About her awakening, she said that she was stimulated, so she awakened. Then she knew these things. In fact, it wasn't a very long story. She finished telling it in a few minutes. By the time she finished speaking, Qiao Fei's mouth was so wide open that it could fit a goose egg. Mu Zhiming looked at Xiao Jin and said in a low voice, "Why don't you make an appointment with a doctor tomorrow?" Xiao Jin. Mu Qiji was immersed in the shock of what she said. For a moment, he didn't know whether to believe it or not. At this time, Muzilian stood up. Dad, Mom, I can prove that Xiao Jin is telling the truth. Because I met. As soon as he said this, Qiao Fei screamed, "Your sister is crazy too?" Muzilian. He was a little indignant. He looked at Xiao Jin and said, "Quick, show her what you're capable of. Teleport with her." Xiao Jin. She sighed softly. "I know you won't believe me." Therefore, there was a very simple method to verify. There were no servants in the hall now. She made a simple gesture. In an instant, all the things on the table flew into the air. They floated in the air for a second, then returned to the table following Xiao Jin's gesture. Mu Zhiming and Mu Qiji's shocked gazes followed those items. Xiao Fei glanced at them and then at Xiao Jin. Her mouth was agape, and it was as if fireworks had exploded in her mind. She was so stunned that she was caught off guard and had no idea what had happened. Now her mind was completely blank. Mu Xiangshan saw this with his own eyes and sighed. Muzilian shed tears of envy beside Muzichu. "Coach, I want to learn too." He wanted to learn too. "Ah, I'm so jealous." Chapter 943. Muzilian had never envied anyone since he was young. He was only envious of Xiao Jin's ability. Unfortunately, Xiao Jin said that this thing depended on fate. If it didn't awaken, there was no chance. No matter how envious he was, it was useless. Even though Muzichu knew the truth, now that he saw that Xiao Jin really had such incredible power, his eyes darkened. He sighed softly in his heart. At that time, he should have noticed that she was different. She was completely different from ordinary people. The things she came into contact with were not what ordinary people could imagine. The Mu family fell into a dead silence. Even the experienced and knowledgeable Mu Zhiming and Mu Qiji were completely shocked, speechless. After all, anyone's worldview was refreshed at this moment. Xiao Jin stood up and said softly, "You probably need some time to digest. I'll go up first. Call me if you need anything." Everyone was still silent, so no one replied to her. When she was about to go upstairs, Mu Xiangshan asked again, "Will you be in trouble if you interfere in the Guo family's affairs?" Xiao Jin shook her head. "No." Hearing her affirmation, Mu Xiangshan felt a lot more at ease. He sighed again. I went to the detention center today and saw Guo Jieshe. He should be released soon. He's too old and has problems. Even if he's convicted, he can still be released from medical treatment. I saw that he didn't look good. He shouldn't be able to hold on. Perhaps Guo Jieshe was still affected by the fact that he had been caught. So when Mu Xiangshan went to see him, Guo Jieshe's condition wasn't very good. He even looked a little dispirited. He heard that there were some conflicts with Guo Ziqing in there, which indirectly proved that Guo Ziqing might be the one who poisoned him. The reason was simple: revenge for his mother. Now that this matter was analyzed, Guo Ziqing and Guo Jieshe were about to fall out. Xiao Jin, whether he can hold on or not, his life is good enough. Her words were a little cold, but she was right. Guo Jieshe had worked hard all his life and even killed his own wife. In the end, he was still able to live peacefully until now. His life was too good. Even if he was convicted now, it wouldn't hurt him at all. He had already enjoyed most of what he should have. He could only blame the ending for coming too late. Mu Xiangshan nodded. All right, you can go up first. At this time, there were a few more wooden figures in the living room. Only Muzilian looked left and right and comforted them. Although there are things in this world that you can't understand, it's good that you know now. Besides, Xiao Jin said that we might not be able to come into contact with these things in our lifetime. Whether or not he knew the truth didn't make much of a difference. Of course, Muzilian was just spouting nonsense. If he had not directly entered the mountain of laws and witnessed the true abnormalities, then he would have already turned silly by now. Mu Zhiming and Mu Qizhi were actually rational people. They were just shocked and found it hard to comprehend when they found out about such a ridiculous thing. Xiao Fei reacted and patted his face. Oh my God, Jean has the legendary superpowers? Mu Xiangshan, what superpower? You don't know anything. She's an array master. Xiao Fei? What was the difference? What was the difference? Chapter 944. It didn't matter what the people downstairs were thinking. Xiao Jin said what needed to be said and left them some time to digest it. He went back to his room to wash up. He had to visit Guo Julian tomorrow morning. The array was solved. She was fine now. However, she had been trapped for so long. She was not in a good state of mind now. Mo Jiang had to go to the set during the day. Guo Julian couldn't go outside before the Guo family's matter was completely solved. In less than half an hour, Xiao Fei, who seemed to have finished digesting, came knocking on her door. Mu Qizhi and Mu Zhiming were not here. It was not suitable for them to intervene in such a ridiculous matter. Of course, Xiao Fei was the most suitable person to ask. Xiao Fei looked at Xiao Jin. Seeing that the person in front of her was still well-behaved, she felt relieved. However, she felt a little sad. Her tone was a little awkward. You are an array master. You were awakened at that time. Was it a big shock? She thought that Xiao Jin didn't care about it after such a long time. Now she knew that Xiao Jin was awakened. It proved that what happened at that time was a big shock to her. She didn't care because she had come into contact with another world. Kind of. The shock of committing suicide was big enough. In fact, it was not a shock. It was mainly because she committed suicide that her soul was reawakened. The fusion of the memory fragments turned her into the present her. Xiao Fei heard and felt sad. In the end, I am sorry. If it weren't for me, I would rather you not be like this now. Xiao Jin paused. Why? It's good now. I don't mean to blame you. It's good for me to be awakened. At least I can see a different world. I was too weak before. But I hope that you will always be under my protection. If I took good care of you, you wouldn't be who you are today, right? Xiao Fei's tone was very sad. Those things would be forgotten even if they were not mentioned. It's really okay. Xiao Jin looked at Xiao Fei and said indifferently, you don't have to think too much about it. Look at me. Am I not fine now? I've really forgotten about the past. Today, I'm telling you all these things because I can't hide it from you forever. Otherwise, he would have to find excuses to take leave in the future. But Xiao Fei burst into tears. She had always been a soft-hearted person. At this moment, when she thought of the pain that Xiao Jin had experienced in the past, her heart ached. If she had really protected Xiao Jin well, how could Xiao Jin have awakened? This awakening was bought with a painful price. She would rather not know anything. That way, their family could still live happily. You have to think positively. Xiao Jin sighed. He had to persuade her. If I don't awaken, maybe I'll still be the same as before. Muzillion and Muzichu still won't accept me. I won't come to the Mu family, and we won't be living together like now. Isn't that good? Xiao Fei froze for a moment. Xiao Jin was telling the truth. If it weren't for the awakening by suicide, she might still be living alone outside. Occasionally, Xiao Fei would go to see her. She was still the dull and weak Xiao Jin. There were some things that could not be predicted accurately. However, Xiao Fei cried even harder. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. I should have brought you back with me. It's all your brother's fault. Xiao Jin, that you're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.